All right. This public work session of the Board of Education for September 30th, 2025 is called to order. All items being considered this evening are posted on the PPS website under Board and Meetings tab. This meeting is being streamed live on PPS TV Services website and on Channel 28 and will be replayed throughout the next 2 weeks. Please check the district website for replay times. Good evening and welcome to tonight's work session. This evening we'll be receiving our annual report from the Fund for PPS. Thank you. Have a deeper dive on the contracts and procurement process, discuss the draft of our board work plan, and discuss the implementation of a board stipend, potentially. Before we get started, I want to share a few housekeeping reminders. In order to ensure safety, please keep walkways and aisles clear. We also ask you to be considerate for those around you. Keep your signs below chin level. All right, let's get started with the consent agenda. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. We have Director DePass moves and Director Sullivan seconds the adoption of the consent agenda. Ms. Bradshaw, is there any changes to the consent agenda? Sorry, I forgot to ask that earlier. All right. Is there any board discussion of the consent agenda? All right.
I think I have something and I lagged on getting ready. So if nobody else has anything to talk about, I'll move on. But if anyone else does, go for it and I'll get caught up.
I can tell a story or something while you...
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Oh, don't do that. She hates my stories.
I know, I love your stories.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. All right. Is there anything anyone wants to pull for a separate discussion? I think I did that all in the backwards order, but
I
it
have
is
one
a
thing I
Tuesday.
would like to say.
Go ahead.
Just really one thing. I want to say I appreciate the work that's gone into for approving this field trip. I appreciate all the information, and I appreciate when we're taking students across state lines, specifically as in this one, that I just like that there's oversight so that we know all of our kids are safe. So I really appreciate all the work that went into this.
Awesome. The board will now vote on Resolution 7178 through 7184. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed? Student Representative Retorto?
Yes.
Abstentions? All right, consent agenda is approved by a vote of 7-0 with Student Representative Retorto voting yes. All right, our first big item for tonight is to receive the annual report from the Fund for PPS. In 2024, the board adopted a revised 7.20.010P district-wide advocacy and fundraising policy, which calls for an inclusive district-wide foundation designated by the Board of Education to serve as a district-wide advocacy and fundraising entity and serve as the fiscal agent for the local school foundations. The policy stipulates that each year the Board of Education shall receive a report at the end of the district's fiscal year, sharing the district-wide foundation's donations, expenditures, and major projects. Superintendent Armstrong, would you please introduce this?
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. So a couple of things that I want to point out. So thank you to the team for being here. The Fund has launched Champion PPS Schools. It's a district-wide fundraising model. And so to date, Champion PPS Schools has invested $930,000 in this current school year, with majority of those funds going towards high-impact tutoring and other funds going to support math, ninth graders, and food pantries in schools. So we're super excited about that. I know that the team is going to share more about that work, but I'll turn it over to Chief Kafori to introduce the team. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Deborah Kafori, Chief of Staff. Great to see you all tonight. We are very excited to have our new chair of the Fund for PPS, Jackie Wers, here to kick things off. And also to assist is Robin Ferrone, who is Director of Strategic Partnerships and also the PPS liaison to the Fund. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Jackie, and I am the brand new chair for the Fund for PPS. I am so new that, thank you. I am going to do my best to present the amazing work of the fund today, but there are many questions that I know that this audience will have that I will rely on my team with to provide those answers. What we'd like to do is give you a brief overview of the annual report and then save questions for the end where we can have a robust discussion. Now, I speak really quickly, and I promise you I stopped the coffee at 12 p.m. in an effort to slow this down. If I am speaking too fast, just throw something in my general direction. And additionally, these slides are part of the board packet. I'm not going to be reading the slides because I respect you too much. And as part of that, there's going to be there for reference. So we're going to go through the highlights right now and then go into discussion. So as the brand new board chair, the thing that I want to tell you about myself is that I am many things. I run a nonprofit. I'm passionate about education and social justice. I am, importantly, the mom of a PPS student. But the most important thing of all is that I am a member of this community. Now, as part of this community, that includes going to events. It means buying all of the t-shirts from my school. It means sitting through policy meetings to get a better understanding of what's going on. And it also means making sure that we are keeping a systems level approach towards equity in mind. Together, we all rise. And that is not always an easy decision to make. When it comes to the wealth and health of our students, the Fund for PPS is designed to centralize our fundraising as a beacon of support, as a rallying point for us as a larger community, so that together we can rise. So today, what I want to really emphasize are a couple of things. Number one, the fund is alive and well. We've been established since 2019, but due to the recent policy change in 2024, what we're presenting is a bit of the new normal. Now, as such, there's going to be things that are in transition, and we will do our best to explain and answer questions as they come along, but please be aware that we are building this plane as we're flying through the air. We have our North Star of equity and justice for all of our Portland Public students in mind as we are working to raise funds to best support the entire district. The second thing I'd like to convey is that this is a year of building. We are rebuilding the board of directors. You have a brand new board chair sitting in front of you. And we are actively looking to build more people to enhance this community of fundraisers. And it's not just recruiting new members for the board. It's recruiting people for our parent advisory committee. It is for recruiting liaisons at the schools. And most importantly, it is a year of building trust and deeper communication with all of the Portland Public School District. And last, this is a year of changes. We can't build without changes. We can't implement and grow without changes. And that's something that I'd like to acknowledge up front. We have a lot of changes and a lot of growing to do, and we're going to embark on that journey today. So, today I'm presenting the annual report from 2024 to 2025. Our purpose is to provide funding that is equitably distributed across all of Portland Public School District, using a parent advisory committee to help guide our decisions and approved by the Board of Education. Our total giving was $1.4 million in the 2024 to 2025 years. And this has broken into a couple different categories, the primary of which is Champion PPS Schools, which was a launching of our collective impact model. We're also developing a strategic roadmap for 2025 and 2026, which I'll tell you a little bit more later. We have released our full report, which is available on our website. Please go visit us at fundforpps.org. And if you're feeling extra excited about this, go ahead and add a /donate and donate to the fund. Now, our purpose as an independent nonprofit organization is to raise the dedicated philanthropic funds and forge strategic partnerships that benefit Portland Public Schools, its students, and its families. Together, we are supporting the excellent education for all. In total, more than $1.4 million were invested between 2024 and 2025. 507,489 were programming for students, and 930,000 of those dollars came from the Champion PPS school programs, which were awarded May in 2025 for this current school year. A grand total of $1,437,000 and $489. I can speak today, I promise. Now, the programming for students, which amounted to $507,000, give or take, included a lot of really interesting investments, including the PGE electric school bus, which is more than just a mode of transportation. It is a catalyst for education about renewable energy and what it means to be able to be mobile in a district. We also cared for our community by providing direct assistance to families that were facing extreme hardships. We created murals, we bought books, we engaged with the community, and perhaps there was no bigger visible example of that than celebrating with hundreds of PPS student artists at the Heart of Portland event at the Portland Art Museum for the third year in a row, with over 1,000 people in attendance, really absorbing all of the creative energy that our students bring to not only their schools, but to our larger community. All in all, this creates not just a fantastic photo opportunity. What it does is it creates a sense of community and togetherness. We are connected by the arts, we are connected by education, we are connected by our schools. The Champion PPS School Fund, roughly $930,000, was a collective program that has a parent advisory committee that will dictate the distribution of donations for staffing. Now, this is a group of 9 parents and 2 students who had robust discussions and analyzed priorities and ways to make a meaningful impact. With $1 million to allocate for the school year, the PAC recommended multiple investments, and these include high-impact tutoring for K through 3rd grade students, math supports for 9th through 10th grade students, and food pantries in 20 community schools. This means that the Champion PPS school programs not only work directly with the superintendent's vision for specific supports for students at key points in their educational careers, but also feeding their souls by providing food pantries and access to food which might not be available otherwise. The PAC also allocated $100,000 for the fund to use as seed funding for future fundraising. Now let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into those programs. The high-impact tutoring is a proven evidence-based literacy strategy benefiting K through 3 students throughout Portland Public School District. The investment of over $660,000 will impact more than 400 K through 3 students that will receive high-impact tutoring. 30 schools are partnered with Reading Results. 9 Spanish dual language immersion schools have 2 reading support educational assistants that are bilingual, and 6 schools have 1 reading support education assistant. The remaining 10 elementary schools were offered the opportunity to participate in an online pilot program. Now, Portland Public determined that the appropriate HIT model to use was based off of careful data analysis, which was prioritizing the students who need the most literary support to attain key benchmarks. Now, an important thing that I keep on emphasizing, and if you would just donate $1 every time I say the word community, then we will hit our fundraising goal in record time. But the thing that I want to drive home is that this is a community-driven initiative. It takes all of us in this community to strengthen and expand the Community Champions programs. This is going to include not only the board for the Fund for Portland Public Schools, it's going to take this Board of Education, it's going to take our school site councils, our school PTAs, it's going to take our school businesses, it's going to take all of us coming together with a singular vision that we can raise funds that will make an impact for our learners. It's simple. If we increase donations to the Champions PPS Schools program, we can make a difference in the lives of more PPS students. Our ambitious goal is to raise $1 million for the 2026-2027 school year to expand high-impact tutoring and other student supports. The more that we fundraise, the greater our reach, and together we can help students take flight. So this next map is a network map. I'm a nerd, and this makes me happy because it shows that we are all connected. And the stronger a network is, the more redundant rings there are for resiliency, the more that we can provide meaningful, sustainable, and long-term support. This network needs more input from our community. So one of my asks today of you is to see if you can help us find school liaisons. We need 1 to 2 PPS parents or caregivers per school to join in monthly meetings and conversations to help us engage and really activate the community. We're also looking for representatives for the Parent Advisory Committee, otherwise known as the PAC. We're looking for 2 student reps, as well as 1 parent or caregiver from Franklin, Lincoln, McDaniel, and Roosevelt. Together, this network can create a strategic roadmap that realizes itself into real dollars and impact. Our roadmap for the next year is very outlined here. First and foremost, we are hiring and onboarding the fund's first executive director. Currently, the fund is staffed by a volunteer board and support through PPS. The ability to hire a dedicated individual with professional understanding of fundraising and the environment and to create long-term sustainable relationships will help the fund catapult its fundraising activities into the next level. Additionally, we're looking to recruit new board members to strengthen our reach across the community. We're hoping to get more increased communications and engagement. I sat in this space just not that long ago and was asked how would I go about engaging with the Portland public community, and my answer remains the same. I am on a quest to get a hoodie from every school possible. I want to go. I do. Like, they are so cute, and hoodies are way more comfortable than this. What I want to do is I want to be an engaged face for the fund for PPS. There's a lot of talk and conversation about the fund. There's a lot of opinions about the fund. And all of these opinions and conversations are valid. The things that I can do, that the board can do, and that this community of dedicated professionals can do is go into our community to listen to people's concerns, to bring that information back to the board so that we can make better decisions to help guide the future direction of the fund. And the first and foremost thing is to get out into that community and buy the hoodies. Next, I want to share our fundraising goals. This is something that wasn't as clearly articulated in the past, and I want to be crystal clear here today. Our goal is to raise $1 million for Champion PPS schools. We will also aim to raise $200,000 for programming for students and $200,000 for organizational capacity and operational expenses. This is a clear, tangible goal and one that is achievable by the Fund for PPS. So the next steps are, please, simple. Share this opportunity with your communities. Get people involved. Send them my way. I would love to have as many conversations as possible with as much caffeine as possible. We are looking for people to join the board, for school liaisons, for parent advisory committee members, but most importantly, I just want to hear from our community. You don't have to serve on a PAC. You just need to tell me what your thoughts are, because I need to understand what people are thinking in order to make the decisions necessary to move us forward. And last but not least, please consider supporting us for some of our upcoming fundraisers that include Timbers, Thorns, and Blazer games. You cannot get any more Portland than this. Show your PPS school spirit and support our local teams by buying tickets to these upcoming games, portions of which will go to the Fund for PPS. And with that, I want to thank you for your time, and I would be happy to answer any questions you have, as best as I can.
Thank you, Dr.
Hi, Patty.
Morris. Let's start with board questions. Yeah,
Director Sullivan.
Director Sullivan.
You just mentioned 200,000 for programming.
Correct.
And what do you mean? Programming in schools or programming in the fund, or
Event programming for the fund.
event
So,
programming?
yeah,
to
that
raise
will
more money?
help perpetuate more fundraising.
Okay.
Thank you. That was an excellent presentation. I really appreciate your enthusiasm. Did I hear you say that you were looking for names for board members? And is that something that we could help forward some names for consideration?
Why, yes.
Excellent. I was curious, what does a successful board look like, and what might be the process for developing that board over time?
A successful board is going to be one that leverages their talents collectively to ensure fund success. Right now, we have people that have lots of expertise in PR at a corporate level, and I have nonprofit experience. So some of the areas that we're looking to grow in include more direct community-embedded experiences, as well as individuals that also have financial acumen to be able to review the documents and provide up-to-date financial updates for both the fund as well as the Board of Education.
Excellent. And then finally, I had a tip for getting one of those hoodies.
Yeah.
You get your first one and you wear that to the opposing school, and they'll give you a hoodie to put on, and you just do that until you get all of them.
My small collection has served me really well. When I go out, people are always like, but that school's not even near here. Like, how do you know that school? And it's a great conversation starter.
If you guys wouldn't mind, could you kind of lay out your fundraising strategy for the upcoming year?
That's a great question. So currently, our fundraising that has been put on the books are those corporate collaborations with the Timbers, the Thorns, and the Trailblazers. So those are district-wide events that we're hoping to get wide engagement in. After that, we have our traditional Heart of Portland Art Festival, which will be happening later in the year. What we're really hinging on is the hiring of an executive director. That individual will set the specific targeted fundraising activities for the upcoming year. That position has already been placed. We are receiving applications and we'll be reviewing them in early November. So we hope to have this individual in place and we'll be able to come back to you with a more detailed plan by January.
Great, thank you so much. Do you have any plans for collaboration with individualized PTAs at different schools and other such community organizations?
My plan is to visit as many PTAs as possible. I want to collaborate with them if possible. I want to assist them in any way, shape, or form that I can, and I want to support their activities. The Fund for PPS in no way, shape, or form means to diminish the roles and the essential role of a PTA in its local school community.
Thank you.
Yes.
Director Engelsman?
Sorry, thank you. Thank you for that presentation. That was really helpful to understand. I have a bunch of questions, and then just to segue it all in, just a statement. So I guess my first question is, I noticed that there's only 4 high schools for which you're looking for parent representatives, not all of the high schools. Can you explain why, for example, Ida, Cleveland, I didn't see Benson, are not, Jeff, why you're not looking for parents from every high school?
So when we did the Parent Advisory Committee charter last year, we staggered the terms so that we have people who will be continuing year 2 in the other schools, so that there will be representation from all clusters.
Okay.
And those, the 4 high schools that you mentioned, it's any feeder school and that high school that are eligible.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned fundraising. The fundraising goal for 2026-27 is $1 million. Does that include, let me figure out how to phrase this. You're hiring an executive director. That person is going to have a salary. That person will have to fundraise for their salary. Mm-hmm. Does your $1 million include, so they'll have to fundraise additional?
Those funds have already been secured in the Fund for PPS. So if you look at our annual report, you'll see that there's money that's rolling over from previous fundraising years, and that which is not restricted dollars are always going to be given directly to the program to which they were donated. The unrestricted dollars are going to help offset the cost of the executive director.
And
I
those
just want to
unrestricted,
be real clear that every dollar that's raised in Champion stays in Champion.
Yeah.
That money does not go to pay for the salary of the executive director.
so then the salary for the executive director that's rolling over is money that's come from the foundations before they were dissolved? That's now
No,
What did
so
you mean
the
by
fund, the
rollover?
fund for PPS has, if you look at the annual reports, has always been kind of bifurcated into two separate areas. One is where all of the foundations have fed into a larger pot, and the other is direct fundraising by the fund for PPS. Now, those tend to be corporate grants and foundation grants that have kind of populated that set of dollars, and that's where the dollars are coming from.
Okay. Okay, bear with me. And so just so I'm clear, the total giving for the 2024-25, which was 1.4 million, 1.4 million was not fundraised by the fund. The majority of that was coming from foundation funds that were still sitting there that were then sent out by the fund for PPS. Is that right?
No, and Robin, would you go to?
Well, the 1,030,000 would have been that 33% that it would be shared with other schools. So last year was the last year where schools had their local school foundation dollars to allocate, and the last year of PPS Parent Fund awards. Therefore, because of the way the timing of the dollars coming in, there was that 1,030,000 did come from the 33%
Okay.
from local school foundation fundraising.
Yep.
And it was a strategic decision to use that to launch Champion PPS schools, because we heard from school communities that they needed to know where the dollars were going, of like how they would see this in their school. So that was, that's why we're trying to get the word out of where those investments are going. And the intention is that they will continue in those areas as continued data comes back and reporting. There could be some tweaks to it, but we're not starting with a clean slate with the PAC to say like anything goes. Like these are the strategies.
Okay. And so then the million that's planned to fundraise for next year, I mean, it's fair to say that that sort of pales in comparison to the money that was coming in from the foundations before, 33% of which was going to all schools, right? Because I think in 2023-24, almost 3.5 million was fundraised, $1 million of which was going to other schools. In 2022-23, 2.5 million was fundraised, 729,000 was going to these other schools that weren't the high impact fundraisers. So to set a goal that is significantly lower than what was coming in before means that we're going to have a lot less to play with, right? In a significant budget crunch time, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That is cold, hard facts. Unfortunately, the Fund for PPS, we are in a growth phase.
Yep.
And if you look at the programming for schools at the Fund for PPS from 2019 until now, we have grown over time. We started at $200,000 and now we're at $507,000. So setting the $1 million goals for fundraising is an ambitious goal, but it's also a realistic one. We don't want to promise the moon and fail to deliver, because that's more harm than good with the community relationships that we're trying to rebuild. We acknowledge that this is dramatically different landscape than the school foundations that existed previously, but this is a systems equity issue, and we are enacting the policy that was adopted by the board to the best of our ability.
Okay.
Sorry, I just want to help add a little context to that, because we had a lot of this discussion a couple of years ago when that policy was decided. And one of the contexts that we looked at was national data. And there was a lot of national data that showed that districts that had district-wide foundations, I don't remember how strong the data was, but they tended to raise more money per student than districts that had local school foundations. Excuse me. We just had to look at, like, for example, the Tiger Tualatin School District, and they're about the same median income, slightly lower than PPS. And they don't have local school foundations. They have a district-wide one. And they raise more. They raise more dollars per student than we did when we had a local school foundation. So that's kind of the backdrop. So I just want to really reiterate that these are transition years for the fund. I served on the board last year, and is a growth period. So I think.
May I ask sorry, didn't realize it's so loud. Just a clarifying question. I appreciate that, and I'm excited about the work and the growing of the district foundation. I do wonder and worry, though, from my view as superintendent, seeing I was pulling up a data point, and I would say even just going back over the last 5 years, there's been at least $3 million that's invested directly into teachers at sites, with that ranging anywhere from 2020, where it was 52 FTE, to 26, and then back up to 30. And the impact, as we're in this place with finite resources and really working to see how we can make sure that we put resources in spaces where it's most needed. And most time that means that schools with designations, and it's clear that the fundraising or the local foundations significantly benefited the schools without the designations that we weren't able to provide funds for. And I think the other thing that wasn't really talked about, or maybe it was, I wasn't here at the time, but that 20% of those funds went back into a bucket that all schools could use. And so I guess I just wonder, and I get that we need time to like build up to that place, but 20% of 3 million is pretty significant and could benefit all schools. So one of the things that I wondered back when I watched the board meeting back is if there could have been an opportunity to build in a transition so that we can maybe mitigate something like the hard drop off. So I don't know if you all know, but we made allocations, which, we needed to replace, right? Because it's not like we have extra resources. So that in some respects, we can hold some schools harmless for the steep drop-off of not being able to put critical staff in place to run program. And so I guess I say all that to say, from my seat as superintendent, I'm super excited and believe in the work of the foundation and your leadership and team coming in to lead that work. And what would it mean to add some grace in so that our schools can continue to function in the way that they've had functioned in the past until we're at that place of saying, okay, it's time to move over and let the foundation take up that work.
I just want to, can I jump in, Steph? I know we need to come back to you.
Yeah,
But
I'm
just
not
to-
done. I just want to make
I know,
sure.
I know
Yeah,
you're
I've
not.
got
I just
more
wanted
questions.
to
Okay.
acknowledge that. I just want to, you were talking about the Tiger Foundation. I just wanted to point out the significant difference between their foundation and what we're doing is that their funds do fund staff. So that's a pretty significant difference in terms of what people are giving towards. They're giving towards positions, paid positions in schools. So, Jackie, I want to say I really appreciate how you framed this up, calling the path forward a new normal, because I've really struggled with, thinking about the way we're setting up the new fund and how to re-engage parents that were doing all of the fundraising. I mean, $3 million is a ton of small individual donations. It is a mammoth undertaking. The amount of work that went into raising that money is it's significant. Unless you've been I know you've been in the trenches and you've done it. So, and I have too. I get it.
Yeah.
So I look at that and I'm like, I don't even know if it's possible. And I'm not being negative. I'm just like, with the current structure, it's not. So I'm looking forward. I'm like, how do we rebuild something like that? Are we trying to rebuild that? Or are we looking, I'm not expecting you to answer this. This is just questions I'm asking. Or are we looking at something like a new normal, like you're saying? I just want to share this. And again, I'm just sharing information. No one in here is, in terms of how those are, people out there are feeling that were heavily involved in the fundraising. I reached out to one of the most involved foundation parents that I know last night. And he said, this is a pretty sentiment across the board, where it's been nearly 2 years since the vote, and they haven't reached out to a single former foundation leader to engage. And we were actively sidelined during this process. So I'm really hoping that moving forward, like re-engaging may be challenging. And so I hope that, we need to kind of acknowledge like what
Yeah.
And I want to
happened
clarify
during
that
that process.
we've reached out to a lot of the former foundation involved parents. In fact, Dr. Armstrong did a sit down with, and actually was on a panel at Dunaway Elementary School, which is one of the largest. So
Yeah.
we maybe didn't talk to him specifically, but we talked to a lot of the former foundations. Obviously, there's a lot. No one's saying there's not a lot of work to do, but
I think, engaging them as a whole, like in terms of like what the new structure could look like, if, would be beneficial. I think that they need to be part of that conversation because they did the work.
I want to acknowledge that this was a very difficult decision for
Yeah.
the Board of Education. Very difficult. And I have thoughts and feelings, but this is not the place for this. What is important is that given the policy that is in place, what can I do to mitigate those decisions and transform them into positive community action as best I can moving forward. So I acknowledge this has been very difficult for the community. My community at Odyssey and within Maplewood and Bridal Mile, very, very deeply hurt. There are very hurt feelings about this process. And unfortunately, this is the policy, but the thing is that what I can do, what's in the sphere of my influence, is to go and talk to people and continue that conversation. This is not just a check-in. This is I truly want to engage with your community and understand. And I think that there are going to be tweaks. There's going to be changes. There are things that you as the Board of Education might want to readdress. There are things that we as a Fund for Portland Public Schools will want to address. This is an evolving process, and the only way that we can evolve and really improve the situation is through constant, clear communication. And I believe that's why I was brought on board, is because communication is a number one priority to me, and I will continue to communicate all the warts, the wrinkles, the successes, and the high fives to this body and others.
Dr. Engelsman?
Thank you. So to your point of hurt feelings and places feeling left out, with the goal of equity in mind, which I think is lovely, I do want to point out that it does seem inequitable to me that 30 schools get reading results in person, and that there are K through 5, 10 schools of which were offered a different, not as good, online program. And if we learned nothing through COVID, is that elementary school kids don't belong in front of a computer screen. They need to have in-person tutoring. And so what we've created here in this reading results, which prior to the change was supporting schools all over, is now that there are 10 schools, only 8 of which I think have chosen to do this online program, that are no longer getting an in-person, these are kids. These are 5 and 6 and 9-year-olds who are now being put in front of an online pilot program, and pilot means we don't know whether it's going to work. And so we're just kind of seeing whether it works, and that is not equitable to those students. So I just want to point that out. I also would like to just sort of raise issue that an investment of $660,000 for this high impact tutoring to 400 K through 3 students is $1,650 per student being put to just a very small number of K through 3 students, instead of, again, district-wide that was before as an opportunity. I think, well, it's not going to everyone though, that's the thing.
That would be equality. That's equality.
Well, so that's where my last thing that I want to talk about is that I think that this conversation has lost the plot a little bit, because we're focused entirely on whether some schools and their fundraising is equitable, because not every school can do it. But what we really need to look at and remind ourselves is that PPS as a whole has chosen to spend significantly more money on some of those schools, because I think it's important to recognize, because they were anticipating the schools that could do the high fundraising to make up the gaps. And so we look at the numbers that PPS is choosing through Title I money, through CSI designation, through grants, At Jefferson, which is they're putting the most money in per kid, this is per student, it's $16,722 was spent last year per student at Jefferson versus Grant, $8,645. That's a significant difference of how much the district is putting towards each individual student at a school. We look at middle schools with Harriet Tubman getting $13,800 per student, all the way down to the last one, the lowest one of West Sylvan, which PPS is spending $8,280 on. And so there's a difference there of $5,000 that is not being put towards that individual student at West Sylvan. K through 8, Cesar Chavez, $14,000 per student, down to Winter Haven, which is the lowest one of $9,700. I'm not saying it's wrong to do it this way. It means that we are putting our money where the kids are that need it. But we are also cutting off the opportunity to engage the foundations at the schools where we're not spending as much money because we know the parents can step in and make up the gaps. And then in elementary schools at Rosa Parks, where PBS was spent $18,800 per student at that school, down to Richmond, which is the lowest amount that PPS is funded, at $7,800. And so again, it's more than double, or less than half, that is being spent per individual student. And I would submit that that is not, for those individual students that are now missing out on in-person tutoring, perhaps high-impact math tutoring, all of these other things, they simply can't do it without outside assistance. And so what we've left ourselves doing, and I know it's happening at all of these other schools, is instead of families fundraising to bring in reading results or fundraising to bring in whatever they are doing, if you look at it, it's not teachers, it's educational assistants, it's front office staff. If you look at what they're spending their money on, now those families are just going to be hiring private tutors outside of school, which is then just benefiting one student or that one individual student or that family of students who are getting the tutoring at home, rather than getting the money into the school and bringing in the opportunities for all of the students at that school. Even the most affluent schools out there have kids who are McKinney-Vento, which is facing homeless and houselessness. They have kids that are special needs. They have kids who are having chronic instability in their lifestyles. And so to say simply that, oh, you go to Winter Haven or West Sylvan or Richmond, so we don't need to spend as much on you individually, is missing the point that that individual student needs our community support. And we have cut that off without, as Superintendent Armstrong has said, without an on-ramp, without working for many years in collaboration with all of these PTAs that were doing it for free without having to fundraise for, $200,000 of programming costs. And so we have created a system that we have cut off funds in a budget crisis, and we've left schools really suffering, and we should be pouring the money into these schools where they're needed, but it means that we don't have money for those other kids who also need it. And that's all I wanted to say.
I just have a few questions. So you made the claim there that the PPS funding was being allocated based on expected returns from foundation fundraising. Can I get the superintendent's input on that, if that was something that was happening?
No, our funding is, we have our equity funding model. We fund, I don't know if Michelle is around and can speak a little bit more on this, but we don't necessarily fund saying, hey, this school over there can fundraise. I mean, that hasn't been the policy since I've been superintendent. So I don't know if when it was the model, if that was something that was taken into account when some of the original work was designed. I wasn't here, so I wouldn't be able to speak to it. And now I think we know that the policy was enacted in 23, I believe, or was it 24? 23, and then 24. 24?
Yeah,
It's
20
new.
Okay, and then 24, 25 was the last year where schools could use the foundation funding, and this is the first year where schools weren't able to access it. And so that's what I was speaking to, is that, we've seen the impact of that. And so, support the team and the fund. It's that question of, you know, and again, I wasn't here, but like, why wouldn't we have like spent some time to allow the foundation to grow as an organization and be ready to do the work that we need them to do? It's sort of like a hard drop. It was like, you know, we have all these funds, end it, and now we're going to wait for an organization to be able to fundraise and bring in those same amount of funds to do the work, but without really addressing the gap, whether it's 2 years or 3 years or whatever it would be. So, yeah.
Thank you. And I would just like to quickly remind the board that we are not discussing the foundation reform policy that's already been passed, I believe. So, if we could just
Yeah,
keep things relevant.
Yes, I wanted to reiterate that. I don't know why my mic's not working. You can hear okay?
It's working.
Okay,
can
it's
hear
working?
you.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe I can't hear anymore. I want to just kind of reframe this conversation because what we are here to do is find out about the fund, the operations, what they need to help to kind of get them up. And I think we need to focus that conversation on that right now. I think if we want to relitigate the policy, that needs to go to policy committee because, you know, that's appropriate time and place for that because, you know, right now it is not appropriate use of time right now to be going back over, you know, the policy and things like that. What we really need to be doing right now is problem solving to figure out how to get the fund up and running as well and fast as possible. What I am hearing, a couple things that kind of big themes I'm hearing here is that it's a transition year. Growing the systems and the foundations to raise funds is a timely process. Number two thing I'm hearing also coming from the board is how do we re-engage those families that have been huge in part with the local school foundations that are pros at fundraising. How do we re-engage them? Because, you know, I do want to say that in back 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, the process was messy. There's a lot of heated debates, and I think a lot of people felt disenfranchised. And I think we as a board and with the fund would better be served focusing our time on trying to problem solve that. How do we get parents to be re-engaged? I think that's a better conversation to have here. If you want to talk about the policy and what that implements, we can create a separate time to have that discussion with whether the appropriate staff that can answer those questions as well, or unless policy committee wants to take that up as well. But if we want to have that conversation, I suggest that we have a separate time for that. Today, right now, we're talking about the fund and how to get them up and going.
And I think I appreciate that, Director Wong, and I hope that my comments didn't suggest that I was saying that we need to, like, you know, get rid of the policy or write a new policy. But I think when I think about the work that's ahead with the foundation and being able to get back to a place where schools are receiving or impacted in the way that it was in previous years, if that's a belief of ours. I think it was more of, you know, are there some things that we can do to help the foundation by, you know, creating a mitigation plan, or at least extending the time in which we're able to use some of the funds that we were used before, if that would be helpful in terms of allowing the committee to get up and going. So, but I appreciate that, and I do think it's a conversation that I hope that we can bring up at a later date, because the impact of that policy is being felt in many schools across our district, and we all know, right? We serve 81 schools in 5 different areas.
So
Sounds good.
can I ask a question? So the policy does not say that the fund can't fundraise for staff. That is a choice that the fund has made?
The
That's the
policy
policy.
is
That's
to
It is in the
fundraise
policy?
for staffing. The decision
in the
was made
policy-
to invest in tutors because the money would serve more and go further than if you had $1 million that would
Right.
pay for
But
a handful of EAs.
I'm talking about the board policy for fund.
The board policy said that local school foundations, LSFs, could not fundraise directly for FTE.
But can the fund for PPS?
Yes.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
what the
But the fund for PPS has made the decision to do that, to not do that? Like,
Yeah, so just kind of, I'll answer
just,
that question.
I kind of see where I'm going with
Yeah,
this.
I'll answer that question.
Okay.
I remember sometime last year there was a discussion about with the board where to spend the money, and I remember one discussion was like, if we raise a certain amount of dollars, we could pay for like 1 EA per school, right? And I remember that discussion. However, one of the things that the issues with the fund is that, the fund needs to also make sure that they spend money and see results. And so the decision was made to spend money in high impact tutoring because that's something that returns measurable results versus like an EA per school. I mean, I assume that could still be a possibility, but in terms of like the data that supports, is that the best use of funds is, it's, I think, undetermined at the moment.
May I just correct something really quickly? So for high impact tutoring, just because I know that it's been stated and I just want to make sure I state for the record. So our high impact tutoring uses 4 models. And so while reading results is one and we're at 30 schools, and it's not because of us, it's because of the capacity of reading results. But there's also 3 other models we use. That's bilingual reading support EAs, that's a reading support EA, and that's in several different schools. And there's Amira Tutoring, which is a pilot that's happening in several schools. So there's actually 4 models that we use. I just want to make sure that when we talk about, and we appreciate the work of the foundation being able to support that high impact tutoring, but just to note that there's actually 4 different models that we believe in.
That's all great. Can I follow up? Because I was going to ask a really related question to what Director Lafort brought up. My memory of last year is that there's a parent advisory committee.
Correct.
Community advisory committee? Parent advisory committee. But it had students on it.
Yeah. Correct.
Parent and students. Okay. So that advisory committee made the recommendation to the board and the board adopted it. Does that ever get revisited, or is it in perpetuity? Their decision that they made?
Yes, that was where I was saying that we would be looking at those investments and evaluating them. I facilitate the PAC, and actually our chair is here, Trina Huff, that served on that as, and so half of the members are continuing, and so they'll be looking at what was the impact of those investments, how could we tweak this, how can we get the broadest impact, what are we hearing from community. The dollar amount that was presented by the PAC is if we raised $4 million, we could have a halftime EA in every school. That is going to take a while to get there. That even under the former model, it wasn't that big. Lake Oswego raises 1.4 million. 1.3 million comes from individual donations from parents.
Okay. Well, they have a significantly smaller population.
And
though,
that
right?
and that's for staffing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm still not entirely sure I'm hearing an answer to the question about if that's like, when does it get revisited? Like, I realize they still meet and talk, but do every year, is there a process for deciding how the money is spent, or
Yes.
or is it
Yes.
is it
Every year they have to come together and
so
decide
as soon
how the
as
money
next
is-
year they could make a decision
Yes.
to
I think one thing to point out is that this is a highly iterative process. We are soliciting this feedback specifically so that we can make these tweaks and incorporate that feedback. We're soliciting volunteers to serve on the PAC because we need their input in order for us to make smart decisions moving forward.
And then I did have a comment to make very quickly. I'm sure time is short or over. I first just want to say thank you. It's really exciting having Chair Wers here. We met right here a while ago and made fast friends and our neighbors, and I'm just so excited. And so I wanted to just really honor your decision to step forward. It's not easy to serve in a role like this, and I really admire and trust you to do a great job and have fun doing it. I also wanted to say that I think reading results and high impact tutoring are great things that we can do. Data shows that this is what the exact it's like the number one thing that you can do to increase literacy. So I just want to say that while I asked a question about potentially making changes in the future, mostly I just wanted to put it out there that there was flexibility to make changes, but I don't want it to be perceived as me having a problem with high impact tutoring. I think it's great. And then I also just wanted to circle back to something. There's a heat map, I think Dr. Adams and his team put it together,
Yes.
that we see in the spring that shows that per student spending by school. And I think that it would be great for us to take a look at making sure that the students that have the schools that have the students with the highest needs are getting that highest amount. And I think that's great. I also think there's room for us to look at schools that get lower amounts that also have a relatively high number of students that are low income. I'm always talking about my own school. I can't help it, but Hayhurst, I think, is third from the bottom per student spending. Markham is not too far away. I think Markham might have become title, so that will probably change. But there are schools that have high numbers of low-income kids that are below schools that have much higher numbers. So I do hope that as we consider budgeting going forward, we do take a look at that. And I think instead of, I think it would just be good to revisit that. And I just want to put it out there that I see that it's so important that we give the most money to the schools that have the most need, and at the same time actually do that, and not just Title I schools, but then looking at the non-title schools, because some of them have pretty high needs across the district and don't necessarily get what some of the schools that have much lower number of low-income kids. And then finally, I just want to put out there that I also know that we have kids that get lost in the system because they happen to be a kid that has a lot of challenges, that happens to attend a school that has overall a higher income. And I think too, I was talking to someone last night about high impact tutoring, and one of the things I love about that is that the dollars can follow the student. And so as we open up in the future and have more dollars to spend on programs like that, I think we can find, instead of being like we're leaving certain schools out for certain reasons, really be like trying to have a per student approach. So that way it's like, we know that Max over here is the only kid that needs this service at his school, and he's going to get it regardless of what school he goes to. So I just wanted to put that out there, that I hope that's something we strive for in the future.
I appreciate that, and I just have to say, and I will tell you that I am representing Dr. Glasgow, who is our Senior Director of Early Learning, who I'm sure is ready to jump out of her seat, because I have to tell you that our current investment is 61.85 FTE across 57 different sites. And we didn't look at income when making that allocation. And so reading intervention is a support that we believe in and that we have deployed. And so what we're hearing from the fund for PPS is supplemental or in addition to really around the high impact tutoring. But we don't rely exclusively on the fund for PPS to fund intervention work happening in our schools. Okay.
So
Sorry. Oh, go ahead.
I would just like to say that equity is hard. If equity was a formula, we could have applied it and gone home an hour ago. Equity requires so much data analysis, but it also requires the stories from the community. And layering all that together is complex. And that's why we need this really networked community together, thinking collectively. The school board, you have complex policies to create. We have to fundraise as best as we can. And in order to achieve equity, it's going to take hard work on all sides of the equation, and also communication across all sides of the equation, so that we can understand how the dollars are spent and where the need is greatest, and we can weave that together into a comprehensive net that will support all of our students.
Thank you. We're close to time, so I just want to call on some board members that haven't had a chance. So Director Sullivan and Director Chase Miller.
Yeah, I was one of the ones who voted against the change. I really like what you said, but we said it, Stephanie. We said it, and we were not heard. And if we could have waited a year, it would have made a big difference. I don't know why we couldn't wait a year. But I feel we have to go ahead, and we have to support, and we have to kind of, it's hard to get rid of that because we worked hard for it. And if we get a system where we always give all the money to the lowest or the highest need schools, then the schools, like Christy said, where there's not maybe such a big percentage of children needing help, but they need help. I mean, one of the schools I know who used to have that high impact tutoring that they paid for themselves lost it this year because they can't pay for it. And they're the ones who proved it worked, but they can't get it this year. And so it's very frustrating to a lot of families. And it was frustrating to me, but I'm trying to get over my frustration, and I hope the families get over their frustration, and they will support this. But one thing, this is a very simple question, but I'm still a little bit confused about what's Champion PPS and what's Fund for PPS, and how are they different, and is money raised and how is money spent?
I'm going to let Robin answer that with more historical context than I have.
So think of Champion PPS Schools as a campaign that replaces the local school foundations.
Okay, so
It's the
that's-
campaign to fund staffing and supports for students in our schools. The $1 million goal is for Champion PPS Schools. There was also $200,000 for other programming and $200,000 for operating. That's the fund for PPS, the $400,000.
Okay, and where did that money come from?
That's a goal.
Oh, that's
That's a goal. And in the report, though, in the annual report, there's a page called Financials that has $593,000 of revenue. That's the fund for PPS, and it breaks it down where those sources of fund, a lot of designated gifts that came through grants, also general gifts through corporate giving, and fundraising that we are doing. That takes time. That also is part of the work.
But that could not be spent for staff or in schools. That can't be spent like Champion money.
No, it's already been spent. PPS has it for programming. It's been invested in PPS.
Okay,
already.
and so we're not
there's-
going to raise any more money for that fund?
The $400,000 is still what we're trying to raise in order to have $200,000 for operating and $200,000 for other
Okay,
programming.
And then from then on, all money will go into Champion?
Champion will always be its own designation. So that's
We will continue to get funds that are restricted, which is also what goes into the fund for PPS. For example, the electric bus grant. So that we are actively fundraising for Champion because hopefully our new fundraiser, when he or she starts, will have this in their head. But there will always be the fund for PPS bucket because we do need to fundraise, for example, for this for the new person's salary, and it costs money to hold events and those kind of things. But the majority of the focus, as you can see from the goal of the fund board, the majority of their focus is to raise money for Champion, which is for people.
Okay, what if there's a corporate person who just wants to give PPS money? Where would that go?
Wherever they want it to go.
So they could say Champion or fund.
100%.
If you go to the
Okay.
webpage currently, /donate, there are two options. One is for Fund for PPS and the other is Champions for PPS.
Okay, and could it say there exactly how they're used? Or what's the difference? Because I don't think that's clear.
We will make that explicitly clear.
Yeah.
Director Chase Miller.
So I want to thank you all for, excuse me, for a great presentation and a very thorough report. I really enjoyed reading it, answered a lot of the questions that I had. I want to be a voice of historical memory from the parent experience that this change to the foundation system was a very, very, very long time in the making. So when I hear people ask why we couldn't have taken more time or done things more slowly, I think from a particular experience, we did take a very long time as a school district to make this decision and to ensure that fundraising happens in a way that is equitable and doesn't overly advantage families that already have access to resources. I think that when we do focus on those schools that have the highest need, that doesn't eliminate or erase or disregard the need that exists in other places, but it does mean that we have more finesse in how we can address it. Some situations require a broader, more systemic approach, and some schools, some locations can require like more of a chisel than a chainsaw. It's a bad metaphor for this example, but you know what I'm driving at here. My work is in early literacy, and there are a variety of interventions and community-based organizations that are doing this work. So I'm really optimistic and hopeful that as we go forward, we can meet the needs of all students within the contexts that they exist in the school district. But I think that now it's really important that we are forward looking. I think that if we had built in a different kind of off-ramp, it would have been challenging to bring people together to fundraise on behalf of the whole district if they were still able to fundraise for their individual schools and headcount. So we're all in this mess together, and I would love to see this board and the board for PPS work together to champion the big picture, which is getting the entire community and all of our families actively, enthusiastically involved in fundraising for our kids and making sure they get what they need. And doing new things is hard. Equity is hard. We haven't done it this way before, so there will be bumps, but I am encouraged by your leadership and excited for an executive director to help you drive this work. So thank you.
Great, thank you. And we'll end with Director LaForte. A couple questions.
Yes. So couple just to sort of build just a little bit very quickly on both what Director Engelsman and Director Chase Miller said. It feels like we got to the right place, but I think, Steph, I don't want to speak for you, but I think part of the reason there was so much, and I don't want to relitigate the past either, but like so much, disenfranchising those who were giving was because of this myth that, they're buying teachers. Those schools always had larger class sizes, and it was taken into account prior to you being here, where that they would count on the fund, or not the fund, I'm sorry. See, it's already new. It's working. On the local school foundations to just get to a point where instead of, 33 kids, there might be 29 in a class. So I think that there was always this narrative that wasn't entirely true. And I think that's where a little bit of the disconnect, actually it's not a little bit, it's a lot of the disconnect. And so I hope that we can acknowledge that. So, because I think it's going to be, we need to just get past it and like re-engage these families because they're super engaged families. They want to be involved. They want to give. And so next, a question I'm getting a lot, how do you see the fund's role in PPS's legislative advocacy? This is something I'm getting some questions about, and when I didn't necessarily see that as a primary role. I know some do, so I don't know.
That's a great question, and one of the great things about the Fund for PPS is we are an independent 501c3 nonprofit, so as such we have a little bit of flexibility and nimbleness in our decision-making process. Last year we allocated $30,000 at the request of the Board of Education to help support the bond measure, and those funds went towards hiring a manager for that campaign. So I believe that the Fund for PPS deliberated this and wanted to be very intentional about how we wish to proceed in those larger legislative asks. And ultimately, we felt that that investment of $30,000 was well worth the billions of dollars from the bond itself. And so we believe in thinking strategically about how those funds are deployed. However, we were asked for additional funds, and we returned that request down because we wanted to keep the focus on dollars that go to students. So there was some funds that went towards the bond, supporting the bond, but it was not restricted funds that were designated specifically for Champions for PPS.
I think I'm thinking more about like legislative advocacy for school funding. Like,
yeah, we did so that was the outreach that we did. Robin and I did along with our former government relations director, Lisa Merrick, was that as part of our outreach efforts and talking with schools that had traditionally had a foundation, is we knew that going in and saying, please give us your money was possibly not the right way to start the conversation. So we said, what can we do? What do you want? What can we do to help you? We want to rebuild the relationship. And what we heard loud and clear was that folks wanted advocacy training. So we did a series of advocacy trainings across the district. And as I said, Dr. Armstrong spoke at school assemblies, and we did a lot of, or parents' assemblies. We did a lot of that kind of outreach in an effort to build bridges. We worked with parents to come to Salem and advocate there. And I would expect that we will continue to do that work we know that the best folks out there talking to their legislators are people who live in their districts and people who are parents in their schools. So that is a definite tried and true method that we will be using again next year.
What she said.
On that note, could
And
you?
Ian did a fantastic job.
Thank
I'm
you.
just telling you, when he was
I was there that day. But on that note, I was actually going to ask about the advocacy component of the policy and what the Fund for PPS is doing, especially at the state level. I would definitely absolutely love to see some education, on how our schools are funded, particularly around ballot measures 5 and 50, as those are incredibly important to how we get our money. And why we get our money from the state, and raising awareness about how that works could be crucial in the future, if, the people wanted to change that, so that would be super great to see. And also on that education point, I would also absolutely love to see if we could get a breakdown of what happens when I, as a parent at Roosevelt High School, spend $100, when I give $100 to the Fund for PPS. Where does that $100 go? How do I get my money? How does my money go to my student? Like, that is something that I think would go a long way in building trust with the community, and would answer a lot of questions that I've gotten from a lot of parents and students.
Absolutely. So the high-level summaries in the annual report, but we are also a nonprofit, so there is a fully available 990. But most importantly, I will sit down with you, have a conversation, and figure out what data and metrics would be useful as we incorporate that into our next annual report and any updates that we give to this body. Again, I think that the key right now moving forward is clear, consistent communication and dialogue, and that's what I hope to really initiate here and keep on moving forward with.
And with that, thank you so much for the presentation, answering our questions, and yeah, being here on a Tuesday night.
I applied extra deodorant. We're all good. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you so much.
I highly recommend sitting on a Fund for PPS board meeting if you have a chance. Very interesting, very engaging. Next, we will get an overview of the contracting and procurement process. This one I hand over to Dr. Armstrong to introduce.
Absolutely. As the team comes forward. So at the August special meeting, there were a number of questions that came up regarding the contracting and procurement process. And so we have Chief Morrison and team who is here, and we'll walk through that process and answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, directors. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and I am so pleased to introduce to you our team for contracts and procurement. Portland Public Schools is very lucky to have this level of expertise in-house, and I couldn't be more pleased to introduce Emily Courtnage, who I believe you have met before, our director. And then we have our senior manager over solicitations, Paul Williams, who's also going to be helping. And I'll be projecting in a minute. It looks like I need to download something. Working on that. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, let's try this again. All right, here we go. I also am super thankful I put on extra deodorant today, so you're welcome, everyone, and go ahead and kick it off. Thank you.
Okay. Next page. Great. So our goal tonight is to provide you all with a quick overview of our procurement framework, and including contracting at PPS, guiding principles, procurement methods, and dollar thresholds, which Paul will cover, contract review and approval process I will cover, and then we'll also cover the board's role in all of this. So we are bound by a lot of statutes and rules in how we do procurement at PPS as a public agency. First and foremost, we are subject to the Oregon revised statutes, and particularly Chapter 279, which covers Oregon public contracting law. We are also subject to federal procurement law when we spend federal money. So we have a couple different layers of law to apply, depending on what kind of funds we're spending. And then we have our own PPS public contracting rules, which are adopted by this board and mostly follow our Attorney General's model rules. At PPS, purchasing and contracting is partially centralized but largely decentralized. So what that means is each of our departments and schools determine their own needs and use their own budgets, decide what they want to purchase and who they want to contract with, or at least what kinds of contracts they want to enter into. They work with our department, which runs all of the formal solicitations for the district. And we help ensure that they do their purchasing in a way that's efficient and that is legally compliant. And then once we have purchases made or contracts in place, it is back with our schools and departments to manage that work throughout the life of the contract until they have some kind of issue they need our help with, or until they're ready to amend their contract. Overall, our department's guided by the goals of transparency, compliance with law, competitive process, and responsible use of district funds. And I'll turn it to Paul to talk about procurement thresholds.
So first off, just to point out, this slide is a kind of a general overview. You'll see a couple asterisks there, which are in the fine print down at the bottom. So the way that we set up these thresholds are essentially in three buckets: micro purchase, intermediate, and formal. So the micro purchase is competition encouraged but not required. That's under $25,000. The caveat there is personal services contracts. That limit goes up to $75,000. The intermediate is between $25,000 and $250,000. Those require a minimum of 3 quotes or an informal request for proposal process. Board approval is needed for purchases over $150,000, as you probably already know. The other piece there, the asterisk, is that if we do construction that is estimated to be $100,000 or more, then we turn that over to a formal solicitation process. The formal solicitation process, as you'll see there, is over $250,000. That requires a formal publicly advertised solicitation process, which is either an invitation for bid or a request for proposal. Kind of breaking down those two, invitation to bid and request for proposals, those are the two general types of formal procurements that we do. Invitations to bids, or ITBs, are used for acquiring goods and construction projects based on very detailed specifications. They're awarded to the lowest responsive and responsible bidders. The RFP process, or the request for proposal process, is more complex services, personal services, material requirements. Certain construction projects that are board approved for that method before we use an RFP process, things like the CMGCs for our high schools. Those scoring is then based on evaluation criteria, which is qualifications, approach, price-based. Lots of different criteria go in each of those. This slide has a lot on it. It is our exceptions to competitive bidding, and I know this there's a lot of conversation that over and over and over we talk about, but there are certain situations where we do not have to legally compete procurement. Some of these are state statute driven. Some of these are our own purchasing rules that drive them. Cooperative purchasing is one of those things. It's a state procurement statute that allows piggybacking on existing contracts that are formally solicited by another public entity. So there is a competitive process, it's just not ours directly. As we go down there, direct negotiation, those are board-approved rules that allow procurement without competition for personal services, legal services, some specialized skills and expertise. So audit services, sports officiating, medical services, things of that nature. Sole source procurement is pretty self-explanatory. Contracts that are awarded directly to a single vendor if they are proven to be the only source for that product or that service. And then the special class procurements, these are board-approved rules that allow procurement without the competition of goods and services in very specific situations. These are things that are like curriculum materials or some software and digital resources that are available from one source, some specialized transportation that comes up. These are all approved by special class procurement. And the bottom one there that doesn't have the explanation is emergency procurements. Those are things that are very unforeseen, that happen out of nowhere, that we have to move immediately on. So.
Great. So I will go through the contract review and approval process, which is a very lengthy multi-step process. The first step is determining whether we require a competitive process in accordance with law and our own rules. So we need to make a determination based on the type of spending and the amount of spending and the particular circumstances, whether there needs to be a quote process, a request for proposals process, an invitation to bid, and we work with departments and advise them on that all the time. The next step, or if no competition is required, the school or department initiates contract negotiation. They complete the contract, almost always using our contract templates that my department keeps and manages and updates on a regular basis. And they submit the proposed contract to my department to initiate the review and approval process. My contracts intake team does the first step of review, quick review for proper documents, budget holder approval, completion of the contracts training course. So we have an annual mandatory training course that we put together, and it is required of all our contract managers or others who work with contracts. And starting July 1st every year, there's a new one, and we start checking, have you completed the course? We're not processing your contract until you do. So that's a big part of the intake process. Also ensuring the vendor's set up, and we have the required documents for vendor setup. The next step is our contract analyst review. So our contract analysts are folks on Paul's team who run formal solicitations. They also help us with the first major substantive step of contract review. So they're reviewing each contract that comes in for procurement compliance, for policy compliance, required scope and exhibits, appropriate dates, all of the things. After that review, if all's good, if they need to, they'll go back to the department or school and work on improving that contract before it goes forward. If all goes well, it goes to the second step of big substantive review, which is authorized contract signer review. So I'm an authorized signer. There's several in my department who are, but effectively it's usually about 2 of us who sign contracts for the district. I will review contracts. If they are over 150 and need the board's review, I will not sign them. I will just do my review, work with Paul to make sure they're ready for the board agenda, and together we put together those resolutions that you see. So if these require board approval, they sit until the day after the board meeting. If they're board approved, I will sign them the next day. But if they don't require board approval, I do my final review, same thing, procurement policy compliance, completion in every way, and then go ahead and sign. After I sign, the contracts go back to my contracts team to ensure our software records are complete. So we have a contract management software, so we ensure the records are complete there, and the final signed contract is sent to all parties. There's a couple, I simplified a little bit. If these are grants, they also hit grant accounting review. And then if there's ever an amendment, it starts at the very beginning and goes through that entire process as well. So the board's role, the board's role, as you know, is in contract approval for contracts over $150,000. In our public contracting rules, the board has delegated to the superintendent and designee the power to approve contracts 150 and under. The board also has a role in our public contracting rule adoption. We update those pretty regularly to comply with new legislation or to take into account new legislation, as well as to take into account certain purchasing situations of the district, and if we feel there needs to be a modification to a special procurement rule, we'll bring those. So the last update was approved by the board in February 2024. And then finally, strategic oversight, ensuring that all our procurement activities generally align with the district's broader goals. And that is the end of our presentation. We're happy to answer questions.
Any questions? Well,
You wanna go?
sure, I'll start first. Don't ever get to start first. The $150,000 board approval threshold. Do you remember what year that was established?
It has been well over 10 years.
So adjusted for inflation today would be about, just throwing it out there. Anyways, yeah, because one of the things about just previewing a future discussion topic potentially is that what's considered national best practices is the threshold at 250,000. And the reason for that is because, there's quite a bit of body of evidence that shows that government organizations that set it at 250,000 operate more efficiently with less, costly overhead and administration. So something to think about, consider. Thank you.
Yeah. And to that point, the 150 was originally chosen, I believe, to align with the formal procurement threshold in Oregon law, which at the time was 150. It has since moved up to 250, and the board adopted that legislative change in 2024. So we do hope that the board will consider, and we'll be bringing that forward to move that board approval threshold to 250 to bring it in line with the formal procurement threshold.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I just want to say the city of Portland and I believe Multnomah County both have raised their thresholds to in alignment with that state limit. So I hope that we can entertain that here as well.
Okay, I just have a couple questions. Let's see, procurement thresholds. First of all, thank you for this. I really appreciate it. You're probably like, why are we in a board meeting? We just do contracts. So for the procurement thresholds, requires a minimum of 3 quotes or proposals. Does this always happen? Are exceptions ever requested? Are there always 3?
The attempt needs to be made for 3. Oftentimes they'll send, if it's, I'll just use construction for an example. So they have a smaller construction job. They'll send it out to say 7 or 8 construction firms. They might only get 1 or 2 back. So the attempt has to be documented that there was at least an effort to make contact with 3 quotes.
And then in terms of who reviews them, and I'm only asking because I know that in the past, PPS actually used to call people like me to review bids. And so do they still use members of the public to help go through those sorts of things? Who goes through them? And that's a lot of work. That's why I'm asking. I'm not who goes through them. I'm genuinely curious.
Are we talking about requests for proposals?
Yeah, when you get the bids, you've got 3, 5, whatever.
We have gone back and forth with best practice about using community members. Sometimes it's very advantageous because they are more directly in line with what might be happening. Sometimes they have no idea what they're looking at and don't have the subject matter expertise. So it goes back and forth. To answer your question, we don't do it very often. Usually on things like the CMGCs that we do for the high school modernizations, we usually try to include someone from the design team to be part of that, but that's really more direct and not necessarily a community-based type thing. Does that kind of answer what you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. And then for to exceptions to competitive bidding for cooperative purchasing. What sorts of, I'm familiar, obviously, we know we're doing stuff with the bond. I know this has been done for, large scale, like facility equipment, like field lights. Like I know that those agreements are in place at a state level. How often do we use cooperative purchasing? Like I know that's a really broad question, I don't know, like, is it generally limited to certain types of contracts? Is it easier? Like what would make you select that option versus a regular RFP process?
So we do a lot of cooperative purchasing. It's very common for supplies. And I think I discussed this last time, but you achieve economies of scale when when there's a nationwide RFP that public agencies all over the nation can hop on, and that incentivizes your supply companies to provide the best pricing possible. So we use them for supplies all the time. For example, office and school supplies. We actually have a e-commerce marketplace where our schools can come on, use their P-card, and buy things at the advantageous cooperative contract pricing that we have. So that's very common in supplies. It's common in let's see, software is another place where we see it a lot. IT equipment. It's very restricted in construction. There are very limited circumstances where you can use a cooperative contract to do construction. And if you think about that, that kind of makes sense because the pricing for a construction project really depends very much on the detailed specifications for that particular project. So it's commonly used goods and a lot of basic services.
Thank you. It is my last question so far. On the contract analyst section, is every contract regularly reviewed for compliance? And I guess, because I know this is a really important part of the process in terms of getting the required scope, all of the exhibits. Like there's a lot of documentation that comes in, after a contract is signed. What does that process look like? And is there any sort of process that we could put in place, like basically a compliance report? Because part of our job is, oversight, right, of these contracts. We get these, consent agendas, every time we meet, it's, millions of dollars. Some of us actually do read them. And so in terms of getting those exhibits in-house and making sure they're there, how does that work? And I think there's a system, right? Is that what the Cobblestone or whatever?
Cobblestone is our contract management system. So our analysts, just to be clear, are just about 3 people within my purchasing department who also run solicitations. So they're involved in the contract review process. All exhibits to a contract are already in place. We won't sign the contract unless we have them there. So that part is in place. What happens after signing, though, is all the duties of managing a contract during the life of the contract are back with our schools and departments. And we do train our contract managers, in that annual course on what does monitoring a contract mean? How do you write a good scope of work and then monitor whether, vendors complying with that scope? How do you review an invoice and make sure that invoice is in line with the scope that everybody agreed to? But those duties are outside of the centralized purchasing department that happens by the subject matter experts in every department.
So if there was a contract that, a vendor was going to provide like a project management timeline and it wasn't received, like how would that ever get caught in the system, or would it?
It's not caught in the contract management system, which is really more about approval, workflow, and record keeping. So it would be caught by the contract manager who is managing that scope of work and overseeing it in the department, and then reviewing invoices for compliance before they submit them for payment.
Okay. Thank you.
Director Sullivan?
So if the contract was services, then somebody is monitoring that they're doing what they say.
Yes, so we, like I said, we train our contract managers that part of their duty, and if they're going to submit a contract for approval, then their duty is to monitor that work throughout the scope of that work.
Director Split?
First of all, this is really related to some of what Director LaForte was asking, but, it's not on. Sorry, everybody online. My husband probably texted me to be like, your mic's not on. He's been like texting me throughout the meeting about everything that's been happening. If anyone wants to know what he thinks about what I have to say. Anyway, yeah, no, it's been like about the meeting. He's like looking up cooperative procurement and what it's supposed to be used for. Anyway, he's excited about procurement. I am not kidding. So anyway, so I want to make sure he can hear my questions. So I want to back up of the like, and this might be like a little commenty, but what I'm really struggling to understand is like the universe of contracts at the agency. No, I work in an agency at the school district. And like, what are we contracting out for, and how much do those contract costs, and just like understanding that whole universe. So I guess I'll put that out because I don't want you to answer to me the whole universe of contracts. But I think for us, I think that's something we want to understand from like a budgeting perspective. Like, what are we spending on, you know, this thing? What are we contracting out for instead of using staff? My question earlier was going to be about how we're making a decision to contract out for substitute paraeducators. And I'm curious how that's working, how we're going to assess that. And I missed my chance to ask. So, but I guess that generally is on my mind is like, how do we figure out sort of the whole universe and understand the impacts on our budget? And so I'm not asking for that today, but just generally knowing that's sort of a question I have. Then, obviously, but then the analysis of the contracts to determine if they are the most affordable way to do business. Do we ever do anything to look at that? When contracts come up for renewal, is there any discussion of like, you know, how did this go? You just said how the staff, so like, let's just say for fun, you're the person managing, you're probably not managing a single contract.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's more
I really
of
hope
my
not.
question. Yeah.
But like,
yes.
if you were managing a contract and it like didn't really go very well, but then you never really get asked and you never really tell anyone because sometimes that just happens. You're busy and you don't want to say anything or whatever. So then you guys come back for the RFP side, a renewal of the same contract. Is there anything that happens where you go and say, how did that go? Do we want to renew? Do we want to go out again to RFP? Like, what happens there?
So that's my question. So I'm not a contract, well, maybe I got to look and see. I think maybe there's a couple of things where I may be a contract manager out of the superintendent's office, that budget. But with all of my chiefs and direct reports, we have a conversation. So it's never where, unless it's like a finite amount, and then the team know that they can be a decision maker on that. But anything that is of significant costs or is about a way of doing work, it's a conversation that I'll have with the team. And so there wouldn't be a like decision made in isolation, like, hey, I'm gonna now, you know, not use this employee group and go and you know, contract out for, let's use that as an example. It would be a conversation. It would be something that we would talk with legal about. So it's processed, and then the accountability of making sure that what we said would happen. And so that is, you know, my responsibility, right, as superintendent, whether it's a couple of levels away from me or a direct report, ultimately, right, it all rises. And then what I'll say is that oftentimes I have conversations with direct reports where maybe within that scope and that timeline wasn't reasonable, or maybe there was some information found out and we're like, hey, keep digging, go a little bit longer, and those still within the contract. And so sometimes things like that may happen where a contract manager or one of my direct reports are saying, hey, we need a little bit more time, the report's not ready, and it kind of goes from there. So that's the management side of it, not necessarily in procurement. We have to.
And there's like a report mechanism of some sort at the end of a contract that you can like refer to if you need to or something, or no?
So that's going to depend on the scope. If the contract manager wrote into the contract scope that there's reporting needed, that would end up going to the contract manager in the department to review. Our department will never renew a contract or start a solicitation just on our own. So the only way that happens, contract renewal, would be if a manager says, I want to renew this contract. And hopefully, and as we say in our training, it's because they've reviewed the outcome of the last one and believed, that good value and good service was provided.
Yeah,
So I would say, just to add to that, so if there is a contract that is going for board approval that within the scope says there's a report, that one of the things that, you can simply ask if you want to know, or see that report, that's something that you can ask for, and I can make sure that we get it to you, or like even a status update. Those are other items that we can bring should that be a question. I mean, essentially, anything that you want to know about like the progress of how something is going or what the end result is something that we can share, whether it's directly from me or if it has some things that is, between the attorney, then it would come from Sharon Tancray.
The last question I have is much more nuts and bolts. Do we have policies that say anything about local hiring preferences or choosing companies that are owned by members of underserved communities? Anything like that we have in place? Outside, I know construction we have it, but outside of construction, I suppose is my question.
So we have the board's equity and public purchasing and contracting policy that dates back to 2012.
Oh, wow.
And related administrative directives is mostly applicable to construction, architecture, engineering, and related services. We ensure when a contract comes across our desk that it complies with the objectives of that policy. Competition is still required. But for example, one of the things we do with those construction projects at the intermediate level where 3 quotes are required, or a minimum of 3 quotes, we require that at least one of those quotes is sought from a COVID certified firm. So that's a woman-owned business, minority-owned business, veteran-owned business. And so as part of our contract review process, when that construction contract is submitted to us for review, we check the bid tab, which also includes that question around COVID certified or not. So that's one example.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I think one question I would love for the team to share is I know that there's been some conversation about how unusual it seems to be, at least within the last month, from community about having a contract that's close to the 150,000 threshold. And I guess I would love for you all to share, which I haven't asked you this question before, so I don't know what you're going to say, but how common or uncommon it is to have contracts between that 140, 149, 140 or $149,000.
It certainly happens. I mean, I think no matter where you set the threshold, there will be some contracts that are near it. I can remember one contract in the way past where there was some urgency around it. This was years ago. I think it was a curriculum contract. There was some urgency around it, and waiting for a board approval process would have delayed implementation of that curriculum. So I suggested perhaps we ask the contractor for a discount to bring it below that threshold, and that worked. So, it happens.
It actually, I appreciate you saying that because it actually is a good negotiating tool. Like we can move a little bit faster in getting the amount down, but still within that. So yeah, thank you.
One more
Directly.
piece on that. I talked earlier about construction bids being at that $100,000 level. Oftentimes when I meet with project management and they have something in the pipeline and hey, this is coming, and the price quote that they have or the estimate they have might be somewhere around like 85,000. I usually recommend they do the formal process anyway, because there's always unforeseen circumstances in every single construction jobs. And if it pushes it over that without the formal process, then now we're out of compliance. So food for thought.
Thank you. Director LaFour and then Director Sullivan.
Is there some sort of like, so there are contracts that are continually renewed, like we've seen them come through, they get renewed multiple times. Sometimes that's in the original, contract, that it can be renewed up to 4 times or whatever. My question is, if there's a contract manager who is, at what point do they have to stop renewing and put it back out for an RFP?
So that's governed by the RFP document itself. We need to specify in that RFP when we put that out, how long that contract period might be. So, Paul's team will work with contract managers to determine what kind of length they might want or what kind of term. So it might look like a 1-year contract with 4 1-year options to renew. It might look like a 2-year contract with 1 2-year renewal term. It just depends on the need. And, sometimes it's advantageous to start with a 1 year and give options to renew because that sort of triggers an internal review process and an easy way out without having to do an early termination process.
That was my next question. It was related to, is there a best practice for exactly what you just described? Is it 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? Does it depend? Like who?
It really depends on the type of service. So I wouldn't say there's a one size fits all. No.
Most of the contracts, or at least the solicitations that my team run, generally say 1 year with options to renew. Those options are kind of the variable on where that goes. It's usually not something as small as 1 year renewal. It's usually something a little longer. But usually when we're spending this kind of money, we're talking about something that's a little longer term relationship. So.
Director Sullivan.
Yeah, my question was pretty much that, except it seems like sometimes they say 5-year contract, renewable every year, something like that. Can you always stop it if you don't like it?
So even if our contract is, say, a straight 5-year contract, our contract forms always have termination language that allows the district to unilaterally terminate with 30 days notice.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I think that's all the questions we have for today. Thank you so much for being here and answering all this in the presentation. And
Thank you.
sometimes I feel like the work sessions are for staff to train the board. And so,
Yeah, really,
Yeah, so
really
thank you.
helpful. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
all right. Next is the highly anticipated work plan. Yay. The goal of this work plan is to provide a comprehensive year-long roadmap of the board's work, ensure all our critical governance oversight responsibilities are fulfilled and in a timely manner. Due to very difficult sometimes to navigate meeting laws, the only real time that we have to discuss as a group is really in a board meeting. So here we are. This calendar guides the board's agenda and priorities, and hopefully helps us keep our focus on our key priorities. So we'll start with kind of walking through kind of key sections of the plan, but after that, and then after that, we'll open for board discussion. As we go through this, just kind of keep them, what I would like to kind of focus on is, as you're thinking of questions or discussion topics, what are some areas in this board work plan that require some clarification? And second, is there anything on here you would like to add or remove? Once we've heard some initial thoughts, we can talk about next steps. All right, so I have in front of me, there it is. We have, as you can see, it's laid out. I'm not going to tell you what you can already see, but just we went with the A, B, C, D, E, B, B. I don't know what that spells. M, A, P. Format. The bottom is basically the committees. And then we try to arrange it by chronological, even though sometimes it makes it a little bit more awkward to see. There are things that we are required to do, like, for example, budget, bargaining. And then there's things that are kind of ongoing and more fluid. One of the things that, for example, recently I added was on the boundaries, the board town halls was an idea for us to get to work and do what we do best, which is reach out to our communities, be a voices for our communities, hear the feedback from our communities, and bring it back to the district so that they can make the best decisions for everybody. So just, I'm using that as an example to kind of get things started. That's under boundaries, as you know, is probably going to be a big one this year. All right, so I guess I haven't really thought this through really well, except just kind of like just popcorn. Whoever wants to think of, let's start with the first question. What are some areas that you think need some clarification?
I can go ahead. Back to the old tradition of me starting first, I guess. I have a couple of ideas that I've shared these with Roseanne. Thank you for the draft. Where are you? Oh, there you are. I don't have my glasses on. And with the superintendent as well in some cases. But I would love to see, like, and granted, it doesn't make for an easily visible spreadsheet, okay? But I would love to see where, like, the committees fit in here. So, like, if we're going to have a bunch of Jefferson dual assignment work, let's say, like, where do we need to make sure we have the teaching, learning, enrollment committee meeting that precedes whatever needs to happen at the board? And I could go on with different examples of that, but I think you get the point that I think it's really important that we figure out if we want to be able to talk about the district improvement progress update as a whole board in December. Do we also have an update the month before? I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing out examples that might not be good ones because I'm looking at this. But I think that that's the kind of thing that I would like to see too, is that crosswalk between committees and between the board meetings. So that way we make sure we have that that committee agenda populated with what needs to be on there in order to have that more full dialogue that we've been talking about wanting to see more at committees, so that by the time something comes to the board for a decision, it's been vetted by a committee and we don't have to have, hour-and-a-half conversations amongst ourselves about it at the board level, so that we can be, like, more efficient with our time. So I would love to see that. The other idea that I had and shared, actually, Roseanne asked me a question that led to me having this idea, but I would love to see, like, an additional, like, okay, so we're gonna take a look at the CBSE site location vote, and we're gonna have the facilities committee do something 2 months before. And then, so we have that piece, but then what about engagement? And so I think it'd be great if we had okay, so does the CBSE site location vote, does that mean that we want to do engagement with the community, with students, with staff, and ask that question for every time? And what, in that case, that might be have communication with staff at the district office. On boundaries, it might be, okay, what are we doing to talk to teachers and staff? We have the town halls that are meant for, like, community, but how are we talking to students? Are we going to have Student Representative Rotorto take these conversations to the district student council? When do we need that to happen so that that conversation can inform the committee conversation, can inform the board? So I think, like, adding in an engagement layer of just for each of these items, say, do we need an engagement strategy for this? Where does it need to go on a calendar so that that engagement is not hurried and last minute, but is thoughtful, deliberate in advance, and can inform at the right point on the calendar? So those were the two thoughts that I had that I'll share to begin with. I reserve the right to maybe engage a little bit more on this later. I feel like I've offered to and still remain open to leaning in to help with building this out. So if by asking for more things, I am also willing to do more work. So
Yeah. Thank you. Just really quick, I want to just kind of respond to that really quick. I think you're right on. I think part of the visualizing the process is that, well, actually, I have a suggestion. You know, I like to work backwards, right? You had your goal and then you figure out how to get there, right? And so agreeing upon the work plan is kind of step one. Now, again, this doesn't have to be the final one. This can be iterative. But once we have the work plan and when things are due, then my suggestion is that I suggest all the committees put it on their agenda for their next meeting to figure out, you know, what are things that you need to prep for and do what Director Split basically just said. Where does this fit in? So that's my recommendation. So yeah,
can I just chat
like
back to that because I like that idea. So would that mean then that the chairs of each committee could take a look at this and decide, do I want this to come up in my committee? And if so, when would I want it to come up, and add it to those committee work plans? Would that be the strategy?
Or yes, yeah. I think when the board, yeah, exactly right. So once we agree upon at least the first version of the work plan, I think the first conversation needs to happen with the staff liaison to be about which things do require kind of onboarding before the big decision comes to the board, right?
It's like staff liaisons and chairs could have dialogue on that.
Exactly.
That makes sense to me.
And then, you know, once that's fleshed out, then bring it to the rest of the committee. Because one of the things about, again, this makes it really difficult with meeting laws is that, you know, two people on the same committee can't really talk about it without violating meeting laws. So I think, yeah, the conversation should start with the staff liaison and then bring it to the committee.
And the chair. I still want the chair to be involved with the staff liaison. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great.
So the chair talks about what they want for the staff liaison, who can then help know when it has to happen and who has to be there.
Oh, we're putting me on the spot. Okay, I'll
You're the
I'm on the spot. Okay, let's say, for example, I'll give an example. For example, let's say, I'm going to pick one here. We have the, yeah, just someone pick one for me. I'm really bad at picking one on the spot. We have the, the what was that? The Jefferson dual assignment. So the chairs of the committee, whether that be teaching and learning or facilities, depending on which one, would talk with their staff liaisons to figure out what are the big discussions and the big items that are going to be coming up that the board needs to approve at some point. And once that's established, then we work backwards and be like, okay, so we need, you know, to have this discussion start 2 months ahead of time. So that would be probably next week. No, just kidding. Right, January, right? And so it says Jefferson dual assignment action. So I would assume that maybe in November, December, either the teaching or both, and facilities committee and teaching and learning enrollment committees would have meetings that answer specific questions that lead to eventually that. Does that kind of make sense?
Can I suggest something? Hi.
Oh, microphone.
Because of meeting times, you'd have to involve Roseanne to make sure everybody
Been
can
leaning
be there.
hard on Roseanne, yes.
Yeah, we're leaning on her. Okay.
So I think, Roseanne Powell, board manager. I suggestion would be to put a layer under every initiative. So the top might be the full board and the bottom may be a committee layer. Does that make sense? So you would have maybe in a different color or something that would show where it precedes or builds up to the action from the board. Would that?
That would be great, because then we could actually drop community engagement in there as well. Like, if we wanted to have like community engagement,
so it would
like
be basically
initiative,
expanded,
community engagement,
but with different strands.
different
If you
colors.
want to keep the buckets of priorities.
Yeah.
Does that?
That seems great to me. I just wanted to, well, since it was kind of my thing, and I would just say one more thing on this. I may have gotten a sense that you would like to adopt the work plan and not wait to adopt the work plan until these things happen. And so I guess I have maybe I caught something that wasn't there. But if I did get that sense and it was right, could we adopt it as a work plan with the understanding that then we would continue to build it out and then like re-adopt it once we finish the community engagement and committee layers, and maybe have a goal of doing that a month after we adopt it initially, so that way we can say we have a work plan, we've got that adopted, and then we can build it out, so that way there's not a delay. Or did I not catch a sense that we
You're
would like
looking
to
at me, so
adopt it?
I assume that's a question for me.
Yeah.
Yes. No, it was my expectation that we'd be revisiting this every month at every work session.
Oh,
Or-
wow. So
not-
I thought we were going to do the plan and then we were going to work against it through the year.
Yeah, that's the goal. But like, for example, I wouldn't, not necessarily like a full, like 2 hour long discussion at every work, but like 15 minutes, be like, hey, is there anything here that needs to be updated? Right? So like, I'm hoping we get this done soon. And then.
I got a lot of yellow bubbles.
Yeah, a lot of yellow. Oh, no. And then we have a chance to kind of keep updating as, every month. Again, not a full hour discussion, but maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. That again, that's just my vision of what it looked like, and I'm only one of 7 board members, so. Oh, go ahead, Director's Pass.
I'm wondering if we can look at that first column that has Albina projects, boundaries, budget and finance, bargaining, and just agree to those as large buckets. If you weigh this bucket against our inbox, you'll see that there's a lot of stuff that doesn't fit within these buckets. Just random emails that come in that are important. But I'm wondering if we could just agree that these are the big chunks of work, and then also understand that the staff will be, not us, will be carrying out these chunks of work. Our job may be to put things in front of the board before decisions happen.
I said it looked like hitting like a game show. I'm like, I got it.
I'm just
I have
suggesting
some
that
things
we
that I want
first,
to add.
we first look at this large.
I don't
look at
think
the-
it captures everything. I think it's close.
Okay. I'm wondering if that would be a first step, however, to agree that we're going to look at this, and then if more than 4 people or 4 people agree to add, then let's add. But we don't want to, I guess, we want to get away from individuals adding things versus the board agreeing.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we probably all have some suggestions.
Go for
I
it.
don't.
I was going to go down
Okay.
in order.
Okay. Go. Okay.
Director Chase Miller. I was hoping that we would, but it's a free for all. Go do whatever you want.
My question was similar to Director Split's. I like the idea of having a layer that runs beneath that reflects the committees and kind of where they layer into the plan. I like anything that's color coded, so props to that idea also. And I mean, when I reviewed, I don't know, I didn't have anything to add, but I also like the idea of this being a bit of a working document. So as things come up, if we are aligned that it makes sense to add to it, we have the flexibility.
Thank you, Director Engelsman.
Thank you. I like it. It's honestly my first time looking at a board work plan, but I am looking at it through the eyes of our community members who maybe are looking at it and trying to figure out what our board plan is. And so in the idea of adding things, there are 2 that in the ABCs that I would love to see added, because I think academic excellence is one that everything that we are talking about and doing and striving for would be captured under that. And then if our community members are trying to figure out what's the board working on, they see first and foremost that, yes, we are striving for academic excellence across the board. And then one of the things that came up a lot over the last 6 months is this idea of absenteeism, chronic and otherwise. And so we should be looking at that, because butts and seats, as I think I heard Dr. Armstrong says, means money in our pockets. And so we should be, as a board, really looking at how we can deal with absenteeism, recruiting, re-recruiting. I heard, I don't remember where it was at this point, Dr. Armstrong talking about reaching out to families who have left and trying to figure out why they've left and how we can bring them back. That's not absenteeism, but it is, they're not there anymore, so they're absent from PPS and therefore not bringing the funds in that could go towards programs to all of our students. And so those are two A's that I think our community would look at and sort of say, oh yeah, the board is working district-wide and trying to get the best for the kids. And then I wonder if, because we've got Jefferson down lower, and we've got September, October, November, December just marked as CBSE, I wonder if Albina projects should just be renamed CBSE, and so we know what we're looking at in that bucket, and we can add different months to that. And then simply because of the, I don't know, I know bargaining is just sort of a one word thrown out for what we're going to be doing over the next year with 6 contracts. I would just like to see it more just respectful to all of our labor partners and the contracts that we're going to be looking at and talking about. So maybe bargaining, conversations with and striving to finalize contracts with our labor partners, something like that. And then I think I heard under the construction, the Cleveland master plan is being moved, but in the revised one that I'm looking at, unless I clicked on the wrong button, still has it in November. So I wanted to confirm what I heard was that it was going back to an October work plan column.
Can you repeat that last statement? I missed that one.
Yeah, that unless I clicked on the wrong thing online, I am showing the construction, including bond projects, the approved revised Cleveland master plan still under November. And as of a staff memo 2 weeks ago, and I thought I heard today that it was going to be put back on October, but it's still showing in November. And so I just wanted to.
Yes, I will fix that.
Oh, so it is going back to October. Okay.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
And I wanted to add, Director Engelsman, that not on here under Albina projects is also the relocation of this building.
That's
so
still
that's
there.
why Albina is not just CBSE; it's other things.
Okay.
included.
I'd like to
Can I
keep them
clar-
separate as well because the buckets of work are so different.
Yeah.
Can I clarify one question? You mentioned academic excellence. We do have the district academic improvement plan. Did you?
Well, I saw that and I just wondered why it's all the way down.
Okay.
I just was trying to. I was just trying to put it at the top.
I have a note to add, like a mission, like vision at the top, and I think that would fit really nicely with something like that.
Maybe less a mission vision, but like maybe so that way we don't just like all agree on a mission vision, but
It's like,
maybe
like, what are we
an
trying to accomplish?
explainer.
That's what I have in my notes.
Yeah,
like,
but we could like just do like
Yeah.
a explainer on what each of the things are, kind of thing. Or that might help. I don't know.
I also just like.
I have
Can-
add a goal to each. We're kind of jumping around. So sorry. I don't.
We do, so we're working on a very old strategic plan that was developed about 4.5 years ago. It goes through the end of this year. And I believe the plan is to do a new strategic plan.
I have that on my list of
And
things to add.
so that's, we're not going to just let it die, but it might not be this one expires and the next day there's a brand new one. But I think that it's in the plan to start to develop a new strategic plan. New board, new superintendent, new vision.
I would just love to say, as we've been working really hard to really have a focus, and I guess I just wonder, it sounds like a lot of things for you all over the next 8 months, and I guess I just wonder, this work plan, like how will you manage through that? As I hear maybe some proposals to add some things, and we think of the amount of engagement that's going to need to happen with like budget and enrollment and school right sizing. I just want to throw that out there that like we'll respond to whatever it is you all's heart's desire, and I guess I just wonder, like, does the list sound realistic, and especially if you're going to add some more things.
I think there's some things that we're already talking about that just weren't captured.
I also want to just share that as a board member that went tried to go through a work plan several years ago, and we had literally 35 things and just not enough staff to actually do everything. So I would suggest, if we can, as a board, to agree to like the core things that we need to get done this year, and check it out and see how it is. I mean, the Southeast Guiding Coalition, you remember that? That was very intense and very time consuming, and you were in your seat all the time over Zoom. And so I just want us to be cautious that this could be like our dream plan, but we're going to have to at some point figure out what we together with the district can realistically get done, and not just get done, but get done well. You know, the more we start flipping around popcorn style, the less we're going to get done. And we have already like some big buckets of work to get done.
Yeah, I think we really need to think about what the purpose of the work plan is and who it's for. I mean, basically, this is a document that guides our work. It's an internal document. It's not a community relations document. It's not reflective of all of the things, but it is reflective of the things that we're going to tackle as we sit up here in these meetings and that we tackle through committee work. I think some of the smaller things, well, maybe not smaller things, but some of the kind of the one-off things filter up under these buckets. Like when I look at this, the way that I'm thinking about it is, do some of these things like absenteeism or fundraising or whatever, do they have a home in the buckets that are here? And then I think the next thing to think about is like, what is the board action on that in terms of whether it needs to be on this plan? If the board isn't going to have an action around it, probably doesn't need to be on the plan. It doesn't mean that it's not work that staff isn't going to be doing, but I don't think that it needs to be on our work plan unless it's something like we know that we'll want an update or a report out about something.
Yeah, I just have one
It
last
started
question.
with me.
Thank you. I just have one. So I noticed the board required actions and reports in August, a goals conference with superintendent and the school board. Did that happen? I don't think it happened, and I just want to make sure that, yeah, board required actions and reports in August, a goals conference with superintendent and the school board. And so I just want to make sure if we missed that because it supposedly happened, that we put it somewhere else to make sure it does happen, because I don't think it did happen. And then I also think that there's supposed to be quarterly meetings with the superintendent, so that should be perhaps in there somewhere with the whole board, which I thought was part of the evaluation template process. But I don't know what this August thing was that I apparently missed.
You're correct. The goals meeting has not happened yet.
Okay. So we
Yes,
should
it still needs to be scheduled, so we'll
bump
change.
that somewhere.
We'll change that
Okay.
date.
And I looked at the resolution where the board adopted the superintendent's performance evaluation template, and there was not quarterly meetings for the year 25-26
I see.
on there, which is why I had not. It was for 24-25, but I did not see it in 25-26, which is why I hadn't put it on there. But just to explain that.
Mm.
That doesn't mean that they're not quarterly meetings. It just means they're not scheduled or if there's not an expectation.
I need clarification.
Oh, okay.
Would you like that?
I would like
Yeah.
quarterly meetings, yeah. Whether it's with the board leadership team or the whole board, but it would be good to check in and see how the goals.
I think that was the question, was whether to do this as a whole board, and then how do we schedule it, if it's a work session or if it's just with board leadership.
I
So
think it's with the full board. I think the previous ones are with the full board. So maybe a work session is a good idea.
an executive session.
Executive, okay.
Thank you. I said work session, but I meant executive session.
I think there may be a disconnect. I don't believe that the prior quarterly sessions were with the full board, not the way the meaning of the contract, the way it's written in Dr. Armstrong's contract. There were goal-setting conferences, and then there was an evaluation. The quarterly communication was primarily through the board leadership. That doesn't mean you can't change it. I just want to call out factually what happened. Director?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
how I remembered it too. Yeah. Just want to follow the contract. I want to kind of respect everyone's chance. Director DePass, did you get? You answered a couple questions, but I want to make sure that you got all of it out.
My comments were just about settling on a discrete number of things, recognizing that we have very discrete duties. We approve a budget, we evaluate the superintendent, and we set education policy. So to the extent that we can kind of make a discrete bucket of really important things that are going on and decide what our role is, I just wanted to see if we could tonight, it would be great if we could agree on the things in that far left column.
Yeah.
And maybe we should also agree to what we do if something needs to be added. If we're adding things, does it make sense to have, at least 4 people agree to add?
I like that. Thank you. I guess I'll go. I would like us to, I like color coding, highlight all the squares that require a board vote. Just because then we can work backwards and everyone knows where their deadlines are. I am also very hesitant about adding things, and here's why. I am looking at boundaries, and I think at some point off this chart, there's going to be a vote, whether that's this June or next, probably January of next school year, at some point around then. And once we decide when that board vote is for approving the district boundaries, that thing is going to backfill so many boxes in terms of how many community engagements we have to do, how many meetings we have to do, how many maps we have to look at and discuss and share feedback. That alone, I know it's just starting to ramp up, but once it does ramp up, I think we're going to be really busy. So I'm very reluctant to add things. I also want to second what Director Chase Miller says, is that I think we need to prioritize what the board actions are and it requires that way, so that when we figure out what our board actions are and work backwards so that we're prepped to make the best decision possible, it's better to do a few things really well rather than a ton of things really poorly. And so I want to make sure that we really focus our work on doing the few things that we have charged with us, doing it really well. Now, as we know, the board's charter is, also repeating Vice Chair DePass, our charter is approving the budget, policy, supervising the superintendent, and that's the charter for all boards. And I think also think about, I know that we have a lot of new board members are curious about how things work. So, setting a separate bucket for what are things are informational, which is important, but at the same time, is it leading to an actual decision? You could make the argument that it may lead to a potential decision, but until then, I think the difficulty is that there's a lot of things that we individually want to do, but if we add them all,
We have spent more time talking about things we may or may not add than just
yeah.
whipping through it.
So that I think it's important to set up a process to make sure that the majority of the board is on board. Sorry for the pun. With things that we do want to add. Anyways, that's my 5 cents. So thank you, Director
Okay.
LaForte.
Can I say something? First of all, I thought this was things that we had to do, that the board has to do. So if we start adding things that we want to do, it's going to get crazy. And I am so impressed with this compared to what we've done before. So I feel very comfortable with this. Certainly if there's something to add, we can do it, I guess. I don't know how that would work, but we can just go from here. This has got to be a start. So I'm very comfortable with it.
Thank you, Director Sullivan. Director LaForte?
I have so for talking about the buckets, we don't have right sizing our schools on here, which we know is going to come up.
Boundaries.
Is it? Because it's not called out in there. But it doesn't
That's
say
what
that.
boundaries is, yeah.
Do we want to call it out? Because I think the average person would.
I think it's nomenclature. It's
Are the board town halls
The board, yeah, I think
about
you're right.
right-sizing schools? This is like, because I don't necessarily look at this as an internal document. I do look at it as public-facing. I think that the public wants to know what our plan is for the year. So I do think, it's okay to be clear and acknowledge. So those are board town halls about right-sizing our schools. Great. We don't need to add another bucket, but let's just clarify that that's what it is.
Yeah. I just want to just give a little context. I think part of the reason we left it, or I left it, kind of vague, board town halls, is because that discussion progresses. So like the first town hall may be about like, what are your community's biggest priorities? What are the things that are worth protecting? So for example, I think, we haven't gotten there yet, determine exactly what the town halls, the like specific topics are going to be. But yes, it's about eventually right sizing. Yes.
Okay. I had a similar comment about bargaining, about breaking those out into the individual union partners that we'll be working with. Let's see.
Except we won't be working with them. It will be just getting updates.
As a district. I
Yes.
realize that, but just, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yes.
So it'd be great to see what they are. Again, I look at this as public facing as well. And I have oversight of equitable student outcomes. Anything that would fall under that. We haven't called that out anywhere in here. Special ed programs, compliance, graduation outcomes, things like that would relate to equitable outcomes that we can check in on throughout the year.
I think that's in the district, the DSIP.
Okay, because we just have district improvement plan overview. It's pretty broad. So maybe just looking for, I'm not looking at you guys, I'm like to us, like for specifics.
And we can create a public facing, like we can, if there's some things that you all want to flesh out, we can put it under the district branding and create something that could be more public facing too, if that's a desire.
I have adopting a legislative agenda and a plan, like how we do that throughout the year and how we want to check in related to that. And that we don't have a strategic plan. That we need a strategic plan. So I would say for me, the additional buckets I would like to see are creating a strategic plan, adopting a legislative agenda, a line item for monitoring equitable student outcomes, and I think the other issues, the other things I raised probably just are some clarification under existing items.
I have a question about what you just said. For the monitoring outcomes, how is that different than the board goals, or do you see an overlap in monitoring board goals?
Well, that's a great point, because I've got a note in here too about graduation and why we're hearing about why this is more detailed. Maybe it is fleshing out. It would help if we have our board goals at the top, but how are we checking in and monitoring these things?
Right. I know that.
You mean this line here?
I wanted a separate one for, but I mean, it's okay, whatever. I mean, I have a line item for equitable student outcomes, and then we would lay out like how we're going to check in on those big levers throughout the year. But you got a point, the graduation outcomes or graduation data is listed under board goals. So we could, maybe it's just refining the name, board goals and student outcomes or something like that.
One of the things I think would be helpful for the team as well is, are these items, when the way that you talk about it, Director LaFord, is that you want to be informed, or the board as a whole be informed on it, or
yes.
Are you feeling like there's some actions that need to be, so informed on?
Right, like as we move through board meetings throughout the year, chronic absenteeism, that is literally something we all ran on. It's so important, but we don't have any notes to ourselves to be like, hey, do we want an update in January to see where we're at for the year? Or are we just going to be there at the end of the year going, wow, things were rough this year? I feel like we need to have some check-ins. Maybe it's trimesters along the way so we don't lose sight of it.
Director
I feel
LaFleur.
like, oh, sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead. Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, I'm thinking about this in the sense that like the first column, those are our buckets, right? But within the buckets, like what happens across the year, it seems like there should still be flexibility as time goes on for us to say, we do want to have an update on, like, I don't think we have to know what all of those things are right now. And we should be able to add them, especially if it's things that aren't adding work and are more like updates, to the stuff that's already here. Like maybe I'm just making assumptions that I shouldn't make, but I would assume that under the section that is, monitoring board goals or the district academic improvement plan, attendance and graduation rates are things that would come up in that work, but it isn't spelled out month by month. So I think there's still the flexibility to.
well, if we add that line for the committees, the policy committee, as you know, will be talking about attendance this next meeting. Chief Buno is giving an overview of special education. There's going to be literacy and math deep dives in that plan. So if we put in that line of where the policy committee covers those topics, I think you'll see a lot of those will be addressed.
I think
It's hard for us though, because we don't see, like, as a board, I don't see the policy committee's agenda
It's
until
actually
it's
the-
posted.
It's
Teach,
actually
well,
the
sorry,
TM.
say
Is it
policy, I meant
TM?
teaching, learning, and enrollment, which I think you're in that committee.
Right,
Right.
but I still don't see agendas until a couple days before the meetings. So I feel like as a board, this is our work plan as a board.
So we can add that, was my
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
And we have a work plan for that committee. That
I know,
will
I'm really jealous, and I'm making one. I was like, duel, when I saw yours.
I just wanted to point out that I think one sort of disconnect that I'm seeing here, and it's partially something I've talked about, and it's not like, I don't want this to sound as possibly sassy as it's going to sound. But part of the issue is that we haven't really dove in on the district academic improvement plan yet, so we don't really know what's there. It's not super internalized for us yet. And so, and I think that we had this discussion in the summer where somebody suggested, like, is there, because we like the ABCs, this thing is super cute, but the district academic improvement plan, that somebody earlier had suggested maybe naming that like student academics or something so that it captures that big picture concept. And then we know that that's going to be talked about through that. So like maybe, I know that it messes up the ABCD thing, but I will say in the summer, I think we did have like general sort of agreement, or several of us said, I mean, I didn't really care about it, TBH, but like some other people really wanted to like have it be very clear that academics was somewhere. And I think I'm hearing that like it is here, it's under district academic improvement plan and it's under board goals. But if you don't know the board goals and you don't know what's in the district academic plan, you don't know that. So I just feel like that's an example of where maybe the board goals bucket and the district academic improvement plan bucket, maybe those could be like combined into a single bucket that's about like student outcomes or something, student academic outcomes or something, and be titled that. So sorry, ABCDs. But
They're already out the window.
but then it will capture what you're, I think, trying to say is that you want to be able to show people the document and to be able to say we're working on academic excellence. And you want to, and like, so I think if we just maybe consider combining those two buckets into like that, maybe that might help with the
So
issue.
what I really appreciate and what's brilliant about what you're talking about is actually, I think, what will seed the work around the mission, vision, and the goals, right? Because I heard that brought up about like the strategic plan. And so most spaces I'm in, and I'm happy to receive further direction, but while the board is crafting the mission and mission, vision, and setting goals, whether they're new board goals, then my team then partakes in a public engagement strategy so that we can create a strategic plan that addresses the mission, vision, and the goals as set by the board. And so if that student academic piece is going to pull in the mission, the vision, and perhaps a relook at board goals, then it then charges my team to then get in the busyness of that work. So I think that's one thing that could be really clear in this moment for us.
Yeah, and I think that's great. And I think one thing I'd add too is like as we're figuring out this strategic plan concept, personally, I feel like there should be one plan. And if there's a district continuous improvement plan, then hopefully our strategic plan will rest on that a lot and not try to create something else. But maybe that would give us an opportunity to do some more public engagement on the district continuous improvement plan, because I'm not sure how much of that happened. Don't get mad at me. And it could happen as part of so anyway, but I think we already have a good start, even though we weren't part of making it. But hopefully we can all agree that having one plan and not a board plan with board goals and then a district plan with district goals. I think that's what we might currently have, and I don't know how.
Or a district plan does build off of the board goals, right? So those are like anchoring documents for us. The mission, the vision, and the board goals is where our district improvement plan sits. But the other thing is, just know that as a team, we're ready to support in terms of packaging these engagements so that you all have something in front of you that's manageable. Because we have engagement around enrollment, we have engagement around budget, and we have engagement around the goals of the district. And so how, you all decide to move in that, we want to be helpful in making sure that we can, provide some support so that, whether it's a guiding document or a frame that you're going out in community and speaking to, that you feel properly equipped.
Thank you. I want to make sure everyone gets a chance. We still have two more. Director Sullivan, and then.
I think I already said what I wanted to say. I would definitely like to see, absenteeism as something we look at, and or academic scores something we look at on a regular basis. I don't know if it has to be in the plan. How do you see that happening? That's not something we have to do and vote on, but it's something we want to hear about.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah.
So where does it go here?
That's good because so in that case it would be purely informational, what, getting updated about what the district is doing about absenteeism.
And we want to be sure that happens and it doesn't slip by. I think that's what everybody's saying, right? We want it to happen. We don't want to say in 3 months, oh, we didn't hear. So how does that
I can
get in there?
I can kind of imagine. So I know that the district is doing a lot of stuff on absenteeism, but let's say it's a hypothetical situation, right? We work on, this year, I'm not kidding, the boundary stuff is going to be really busy. It's going to be a lot of stuff. It's going to be a lot of work. I don't, if we throw in, I'm worried that, I care about absenteeism a lot. I'm worried if we throw it in there, it's just kind of going to get lost in the noise. My one hypothetical thing that may happen, for example, is that when the boundary stuff is near completion, whether that be next school year, and the board decides that absenteeism is something that we really want to elevate, not just what the district is currently doing, but maybe elevate it. And that's something that the board can charge the superintendent to put in more resources and have a plan for improving. And that would be a work session part of the work plan for potentially the next year. Again, with working backwards, figuring out what is it that the board actually needs to decide on, because
we haven't had a conversation. I think this is part of the issue is we're getting a document that none of us had any say in. It's fantastic. I'm just saying we haven't touched this yet. So, and we haven't been involved in the strategic plan. We have one that's expiring and sensing that there may be some disconnect and maybe definitely some frustration coming from me because that is a priority. That is a significant priority in my mind. So when I don't see it, I'm surprised that we wouldn't just drop it in. So do we need to finish the plan for the next few months and then, but simultaneously, do we need to develop a new strategic plan so we're all on the same page?
Yeah, I think maybe it may be helpful to have an informational session on absenteeism so that we are up to plan, because I think, we've had this presentation for the last couple of years, information, so I think it may help to have the new board members kind of up to speed as well.
On the topic of absenteeism, I would really, really love if DSC was a big part of that, because these are the kids, who are chronically absent, who know people who are chronically absent. I believe that I myself, for many years of high school, qualify as chronically absent, despite my position, and I would be so happy to explain why, why I find myself not coming to school sometimes, and why my friends sometimes don't come to school, and what it is that gets us to go to school, and so I think that, the student input is going to be a massive part of that, 'cause I think that there's a lot of people, who just go, I think that I know what is motivating the students, when we could just ask them,
Good point.
Wild idea.
so-
But what if instead of us putting it on our work plan, we had Student Representative Retorto put it on his work plan
Oh,
and come
absolutely.
to us and report to us with how those conversations went and what they yielded.
Absolutely, we will absolutely.
Just tonight, I mean, everybody would need to agree, but I just feel like maybe that's a way of not having it fall to us, but delegate it
Oh.
to the students who have such an important part.
Discuss it at
Absolutely.
your spring event.
Yeah, that's definitely something that will be a continuing conversation for us for whenever this gets put on the agenda. But yeah, the goal would be to have maybe have a few people speak from the council at whatever meeting this gets discussed at, because I know there's a lot of people who have some interesting input on the issues. That was my only request. Also, more town halls. I like town halls. Do more of them, and that's it. I like everything else in this agenda.
Well, I was going to ask if you had more that you wanted to talk about.
There's lots of space on these meetings to do things. There's one thing here, that we have to get done. So the agenda can have lots of different things on it. These are just things that have to be voted on, have to be done. But we can suggest tons of stuff for different agendas.
So I'm trying to track the different things
Yes,
here.
sounds
I have a
good.
clarifying question. So one example is absenteeism, which I'm really happy that the board is going to talk about. That is going to be an hour-and-a-half discussion in a policy committee meeting. Now, I'm hearing Director Sullivan saying she wants this to be brought to the board as a discussion. So my question is, are you asking to have them in both places? Or as long as it's on the committee, it's on the board's calendar for the year, and it highlights as being as a discussion item at a policy committee, that would suffice as, okay.
Yeah,
Is
I
it
think-
policy or
Oh,
TLE?
I keep saying policy,
Yeah,
a
so-
policy burned in my brain, but it's TLE.
Yeah, so
And
that
they could report back to us. Anyway, I mean, we don't have to have a big, long
It's
board
also,
discussion.
absenteeism is a crucial part of the DSIP as well, and that is coming to you. I appreciate Director Split's comments that, y'all haven't had a chance to really deep dive, and that's coming before the full board on the 28th of October. So there will be a robust conversation then, and maybe you can see the action plan and what what the district is planning to do around that is one of the top focus areas.
I just wanted to say something about this plan. And I hear you, Director Lafort. You're like, well, we haven't done anything with it yet. But also we have a board that's partly stayed on, and then we've got new people. And I want to be sensitive to the fact that, you're learning the cadence of the rhythm of the district. And it's hard to know it unless you experience it. You can't, you can't even know what a Southeast Guiding Coalition looks like until you've been through it and you've been, you can ask Eddie. He'll be hours and hours. And so I want to be sensitive to the fact that some of this is all new, but also we have new team members that we need to, I think maybe it might be helpful to identify what are those things that you suspect or think that might have not had your input, because this is a document based on like the current knowledge. It's current, working towards the future. We can't necessarily, I don't want to go backwards just because I'm a volunteer, and I don't think it helps to keep going backwards. Also, when we're adding things, we need to understand what's in our budget that has been approved and codified and it's done. The budget's already done. So we're going to have an opportunity next year to adopt a new budget, and we'll have time to add things at that point. But I just want us to be conscious of adding things that might require budget that we don't have.
Yeah, thank you for that. I also want to add that a lot of this work plan was taken into account with everyone's input. The problem is that not everyone agrees what like the priorities are, but the things that everyone did agree are priorities did get into the work plan, like boundaries, Jefferson dual assignment, board town halls. People, there was a lot of calls for like board members want to be active in their community. There was talk about oversight of the bond, for example. That's one of the big things that made it in there that everyone agreed upon. And so, yeah.
I'm just saying it's the first time like we've even had to sort of like proof the work, really. Like that's all I'm saying. And we're missing a couple big things and a strategic plan, legislative agenda, and we all keep talking about chronic absenteeism, which I think if we just even change the category name for district academic improvement plan, if we change that to like academic excellence or something like that, and then just drop chronic absenteeism in under there, it would completely work. But there's just a couple things that we've talked about a lot that weren't on the list.
Could I just ask Roseanne a question? Where do you think legislative update, my understanding is in the past, it's been sort of a Deborah and her future legislative person.
Are we still filling that position?
Make a list and bring it to us for consideration. I don't think it's a huge time suck for the board because we don't create it. So maybe it could just be popped into, but it doesn't really fit under board governance, or there's something else that's kind of open. Required board actions, unless it is a required board action by policy that we do it, I don't know. But
it's not a required board action. And actually, I just texted Lisa to see. I don't know that we've done it before in a short session. I need to check. But that doesn't mean we couldn't do it. But in the past, it's my understanding that we've only done it for the full sessions.
Okay,
the board did adopt it, but
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
it's not a requirement that the board adopts it. It's just something that
Right.
we do for buy-in and also for. Sorry, I'm getting sick. We do it for buy-in, board buy-in, but also for public awareness. It helps us with our advocacy, as you know.
Yeah, we might consider doing, but yeah, I feel like that could just be added somewhere, but there's just not an easy big bucket, so I don't know, but it might be nice, because it's just, to me, it's a relatively, in my experience, watching it happen before.
And if there's a time of the year that it makes sense.
Right, like it would be great to see it on the calendar.
It would be in January, we'd need to do it by something like that. If we want to do something, we might want to do something that's like fight like HE double hockey sticks to protect the current funding for schools, but
Which is
that
a lot
might
of our,
be it.
it'll be a
And
lot
then-
of our bandwidth.
Yeah.
This is all, outside of our regular work
Yeah.
days. Like that, I think that's why this
So
is
just
really
finding
important to us.
Yeah, totally. So just finding a home for it within the framework might be great, because I don't think it needs to be its own line item, right? Yeah, it's pretty chill to do it. Yeah.
I think we have Dr. Adams that wanted to maybe talk about attendance.
Well, I wanted to talk about the regular intervals by which the board will be informed about how students are performing. At least it's been regular intervals since I joined the team in October of 21. So they're not all reflected on the document yet. I don't know if everything is there. And I haven't laid eyes on it since probably 2 days ago. But the typical cadence would look something like this. This month, OSAS data. December, current student achievement, how many of our students are currently on grade level not. January could clearly be attendance and chronic absenteeism. February would be graduation. March would be successful schools. And then sometime between April and June, we talk about student growth via the MAP assessment or the iReady assessment. And so I'm just wondering if I'm hearing a desire to have all that laid out, because the district continuous improvement plan does have 4 categories, which include attendance, literacy, mathematics, and 9th grade success. And so I just want to make sure that I'm clear so I can help Roseanne, because she's going to blow up my inbox around some of this stuff in a very loving way, to make sure that we are the inputs that we're providing onto your current draft work plan meet your needs. So I don't know if it would be helpful to have those
of
data.
having not gone through this process before, everybody, I mean, this sounds very familiar. This is what we've done for the last, since I've been here too. And some of these things are on our plan. The OSAS data is in October. December, we have, my copy is not really clear, growth data, map, and, can't read that other word. In other words, their graduation, successful schools, these are on here. You'll note, at least on the revised plan. And so, again, if you haven't gone through these updates, then you wouldn't know maybe they were coming, but they're literally on here. I don't know, you mentioned attendance. Maybe we add, like literally type it in, and it would be in January?
We could do it.
the
Chief
graduation.
Bruno and I could do that in January.
Or February. It could be combined with graduation data.
Well, I think, isn't that part of the post-secondary readiness indicators? is absenteeism?
Absenteeism isn't. It's one of the 5 common metrics for ODE. And so the other thing for your information is that not only will you receive an overview of the district continuous improvement plan, whenever we bring data, we're going to give you an update on the plan as well. And that isn't...
It's not articulated here, but
yes.
Well, that,
but
so,
now we all know.
Yeah, so I'm thinking of a previous board member who, when exiting, talked at length about the difference of having a calendar versus a work plan. And so I thought that, like, in some of those early conversations that we had, it was like acknowledging that a calendar doesn't really get to the heart of the work that the board does. And so I hear some of this is like, but it doesn't show what we're doing. Well, that's the calendar. And so we put on here to say, well, these are the actions. And so I guess I just want to go back to say, is the interest a detailed calendar, or is the interest a detailed work plan, or both? Because I think some of the things that Dr. Adams just stated are things that would be on a calendar of what happens, all of the October meetings, November, December, here's all the things that we have, and then, some of these other things. So I'm recognizing that.
I think you nailed it in terms of, like, how maybe some of the ways some of us are seeing this a little bit differently. Like, I look at it as a work plan. Like, I'm looking at notes on, the fund for PPS saying, I think we should have, like a work plan. I would drop in here like, hey, I'd like to have Robin report back to the board in December on, like, where we're at. Things like that. That's a work plan. Like, those are things that you're preparing for and getting ready for. A calendar it's just a list of dates.
Right.
So is there some?
Yeah.
So then if, may I just really quickly then, if the calendar is a list of dates, then there isn't a need then, right, to plug in update, like when there'll be updates on, like, attendance or OSAS or graduation rate, because it isn't like something that you're actively doing. It's information that you're receiving to help when you're ready to make decisions about policy or budget.
Yeah,
I feel like this is serving both, because if that were the case, we wouldn't have, town halls on here, right?
Right.
So it really needs to function as both.
My response to that, I just want to just kind of reiterate. I think, set the framework, right? Like, for example, I want to be very careful that we're not getting into, for example, management's job, right? Because management's job is to figure out how to make things work. They have a work plan. At the same time, I also want to make sure that we keep centering our students. Is this work plan that we create going to actually improve our outcomes for our students? And if it doesn't, we need to scrap it and move on to something that does work. Because I think, while I'm not opposed to this, I think we started with a calendar version, which I want to, but these are things that we have to do. And it's a lot of things to do. And if we want to do boundary work right, and here's the way I see it, doing boundary work right is going to help our students. It centers our students and makes sure that all our middle schools have, all the course offerings that every other middle school has, make sure that they have robust programming everywhere, consolidating our resources where they're needed. And that's students focused. And I think focusing on a work plan on boundaries, for example, so that we do it well, is going to improve outcomes for our students. Now, apply that to everything else. And if you can't answer for me that it's going to improve outcomes for students, then I'm going to push back. And so I hear what a lot of people are saying, but again, I want to just be clear. There are some things on here that are informational. There are some things that we want to know about, and that's fine. But at the same time, give me an example of a work plan that's going to improve our student outcomes.
Can I go ahead?
I'm
I'm not
done.
going to answer that particular question. I thought you were going to end with a period. Anyway, I guess I just want to say I think what this is to me, I don't know the difference honestly between a work plan and a calendar and an action, whatever. This document, whatever you want to call it or think of it as, to me it's really helpful because it lays out our work and what we can expect to happen at upcoming meetings so that we're not nervous about, is this going to get covered? And so to me, adding in what Dr. Adams mentioned is going to happen anyway on a line about academic improvement doesn't add work. It's going to happen anyway. And so I don't see a reason not to add it. It's not adding more. It's just adding in things we know are going to happen. So then those of us that feel like we really want to make sure that we're getting transparency, because like it's not just about oh gosh, it's late for me to be articulate. Let me try again. It's not just about us wanting to like get our hands in and like make trouble for staff. We love doing that because it's really fun for us. But what it really is about is transparency on how our schools are doing, which benefits our community and benefits our students. And so I don't think that adding informational items is a problem because then we know it's coming. And I don't think that those informational items are a waste of time or about making more work for staff. I think they're about accountability and transparency. And frankly, like, I don't know how you all do, but like if I don't have a due date for my work, I really struggle to get it done. And so it helps to give like accountability that I hope you all appreciate. Like I love that my boss is like, I need that by Friday, because then I know I need to get it done by Friday, because otherwise I'll wait 2 weeks to do it. So I just want to put it out there that like, I think adding things we're going to do anyway makes sense. And then I also think that it shouldn't be, I just worry sometimes that we're like a little dismissive of our oversight role. And I really take that very seriously. I think transparency is really important. And I think everybody's heard me talk about like my number one reason for running for the school board was to like rebuild trust in the district so that our public school system can thrive, so that parents choose to send their kids to our schools. That's why I'm here. Like a lot of times people are like, oh, student outcomes. Student outcomes matter to me a lot. But I also, that rebuilding trust is like a twin priority for me. And so I think that like doing those oversight pieces is just really important given the issues that have happened. And it's not just transparency to like parents, families, community. It's to teachers who still feel a strong sense of distrust and disconnection from the district. So by being transparent, we can help heal that. So I'm all here for transparency, and I think it's important. And I don't think that it's like, I think it is helpful for students. And I just really want to make sure to like give a plug for our oversight role, because sometimes I think it's like viewed as like extra work, but I actually think it should just be viewed as like accountability and transparency, and hopefully we all support that.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. I appreciate it. I think what we can do, and I ask the question so that we can be helpful in this, so I can be helpful in this with the team. And so it sounds like, in addition to not, of course, Chair Wong for whatever is on, of course, I have no control over that. But what I can say is that we can take this back and look at setting up in a way that pulls in like committees and some of those things that happen on a regular basis. And I wonder if it would be helpful for us to even add when it's informing, when it's a discussion, and when there's like board action that could be on this work plan, because from what I'm hearing, it sounds like it would be helpful for the team. And then I remember one of you, and I'm sorry because I don't remember who, talked about having an engagement thread through. Okay, so I wonder if that's something that we can also add to this across the month, so the board can see that in a way that's articulated across the months and the strands in which it's intersecting. Does that make sense? Okay. So I think we can try maybe pulling it together in a different way that I think respects all of the things that you all are bringing up.
Director Chase Miller.
So I've been working on, in my day job, we've been working on our work plan and our strategic plan versus a calendar. So I feel very clear on the difference in this moment. And I appreciate the point that Dr. Armstrong made, because I think there is a difference, and I think both are helpful. And I think what you just described sounds like a good way of accomplishing both. Because I don't want to infer that there are things that are unimportant, because I don't believe they should be on our work plan. But like, I feel strongly that our work plan is the tactical things that we are doing. It is our work. It's not staff's work. It's our work. That doesn't mean we don't need to be informed of staff's work, and that doesn't mean it's not helpful to know when that work is coming and we're going to get updates on various things. And those kinds of things feel like a calendar thing to me, and something that would be useful to the public, versus the actual tactical things that we do as a board that we also need to have a clear timeline and vision on. But when you were talking, Dr. Armstrong, I'm imagining it, and I think it sounds dope. So let's try that.
Okay. So I've heard a number of people sort of say that either calling the district improvement plan something else, student excellence or student academics, academic excellence. I really think that changing the left-hand bucket, and frankly having one that's excellence in service with nothing except successful school survey, those could so easily be compacted into one that is academia or academic excellence, because frankly none of us are here doing any of this except to bolster how our students, all of them, do in this system. And so I would like to see us having that up there first. I would like, or right at the top, I would like to see us, district improvement plan. I didn't know that we were going to be talking about all those 5 important things. I didn't know that in October we've got a meeting or a presentation on absenteeism. And while this is not apparently supposed to be public facing, it has been published to the community to look at. They've listened to us talking about all of this. And if I have questions, and it sounds like a few of us on here have questions, certainly our community members are going to have questions about what the heck does it mean that in October they're doing the district improvement plan overview. And so I think it would be important to sort of not just copy paste throughout, but instead call that left column what it is, which is academic student success or something, and then lump everything in and know that we're doing this absenteeism presentation, know that we're going to hear about everything else that's coming, so that our community knows, oh, I can't come in September, but I want to go in October because there's really something important to me coming. And also that we have on here, it's September 30th. We haven't had a Jefferson dual assignment presentation. We're not going to in September unless someone's going to present to us in the next 2.5 hours. And so we have to make sure that this is also accurate of what we're going to do. What do we have?
That, yes.
What do we have that? It's in a committee. Okay. Okay, so.
You have to watch it, yeah.
Yeah.
You can go back and watch it.
Okay, so, right, and so maybe to the point originally of someone, maybe it was your thread underneath of saying that's going to be in TLE, so someone knows where to watch it and where to learn about it. And, I know we have another conversation coming up about stuff, and not everyone can go to all of those meetings, board members aside or community members. So it's really important to me that we sort of take these 2 columns that, frankly, in the left-hand side, district academic improvement plan and excellence in service, they're kind of like fluff, and call them what they are, so our community knows what we're working on and then knows when to see it coming. Yeah. Also, I also think it's really important that all of the board participate in the quarterly meetings, because board leadership is going to change, and Dr. Armstrong, first of all, board leadership changes, and so if all of us are there, we can see how it's done. So when it's someone else's turn to be board leadership, there's a continuous flow to it. But also, so Dr. Armstrong is hearing thoughts, ideas, concerns, kudos from everybody, so that if somebody like Director Split, you're down there, becomes chair next year and had an issue that didn't get communicated properly or fully or at all, it's not a surprise to Dr. Armstrong. And so I do think it's important that all of us participate in those quarterly meetings to learn from each other, to communicate, and also prepare for an ever-changing board. All right, that's all.
All right. We are at past time and need to kind of move the conversation on. A couple of things that I did hear was, well, actually, next steps. It would be helpful for the committees to also create a work plan so that everyone is informed of what is upcoming. That's what I've heard. As much as possible, of course. We can all follow Director Chase Miller's lead. Thank you. I think we have a lot to work on, so I think we're not going to solve it tonight, but we have plenty to chew on. So unless there's any last comments or whatever. Again, there's another thing is we can always do. I'm going to throw Roseanne under the bus. If there's topics that you would like to add or suggestions, just so that we don't violate meeting laws, email that to Roseanne, who can compile a big giant list. A table. If that's okay.
And I remain available to help if that would be helpful to
Roseanne,
you.
thank you so much for putting this together.
Yes, it's incredible.
We have a direction to go. I
work.
appreciate the input.
All right. Yay. What everyone loves to talk about. Let's talk about money. Our next topic for discussion is stipend. It's a 3-hour conversation. So if you know from in our history, school boards in Oregon are paid exactly $0 for their volunteer jobs. Woohoo! In 2023, in the 2023 legislative session, the legislature passed House Bill 2753, which allows school boards to provide each voting board member a stipend up to $500 per month, and then adjusting for inflation after that. The purpose of this was to increase accessibility for running for the board, so that more people can actually do this volunteer work. And however, soon after, the Oregon Ethics Commission shot that down because you can't vote for something that serves yourself. However, there's been a couple workarounds, and which I'm going to hand over to our Sharon Tonker soon. But just kind of a couple of reminders. If the board does agree to go with the stipend, also to note that board members do not have to take the full amount. You can decide any amount up to the maximum allowed. Individual board members may elect to not take a stipend. You can also elect to take a stipend sometimes and then not other times, or discontinue. And also really clearly, receiving a stipend under the statute does not make a board member an employee of the district.
If somebody didn't want it, they could donate it to the fund for PPS.
There you go. Could I hand it to Sharon Tonker to kind of just do a quick overview of the options that we have?
Sure. It would be helpful it would be better if I didn't reiterate what I've given you in a privileged memo. So if you all have that handy, I'm happy to answer any questions. It's probably better not to go into great detail, but I can hit the 3 points easily, the 3 options that are identified. Future stipends, so you all could vote for the future board. None of you would benefit from that until unless it would be your subsequent people, the subsequent members of the board. You could vote on separate resolutions for each one of you. As a whole, you declare the conflict. Then if it's a a stipend for Director Retorto, which it can't be, that's why I'm choosing him, then you all would be voting, six of you would be voting for the other member after the conflict is declared. That's what the OGEC has identified as the most clear way to do it. A third way to, that's not fair. The OGEC did not say it was the most clear way. It said it is one of the options. They didn't give preference. And then the third way is after an amendment in this from the through the statutory process, is that you all vote, you declare the conflict, and you vote on the budget in spring, essentially, and then it will be for next year. It wouldn't be anything for this year. So it's all about relative timing. Future board members, that's the way to think about it. Future board members, none of y'all benefit. The second option is kind of one by one, and then the third option is as a whole in the budget, declaring your conflict, and then you can vote on the budget. To be clear, if there are any stipends in the budget, every year you have to declare that conflict when you vote on the budget because it's in there. But that would be an ongoing thing for all future board members.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yep.
Is the future board the board that becomes convened 2 years from now?
Anytime.
Or it's just a new human comes into the slot?
Any new human. So anybody who has potential pecuniary interest in getting the stipend wouldn't benefit from it if you voted on that option, the first option.
But none of us are running or continuing. Since we're continuing, so next year we couldn't get it even if we voted in, right?
On the first option, right, you could not.
So only after someone's voted
Right.
in.
That's the very long-term strategy.
Yeah.
After all 7 of you are gone, that's when that one would take effect. 7 of you individuals are gone.
But that's just for the first strategy.
Right.
The other strategies, that does not apply.
Yeah, exactly. There are at least 2 other ways for the 7 of you all to appropriately, under the OGEC rules, to vote for a stipend for the existing 7 of you.
So,
just one.
Oh, yeah. So quickly, asking for a friend, by the way. In none of these situations does the student representative get paid.
That is abundantly clear. You will never
Dang.
benefit from this.
But there are
Getting
other
paid in
options that we can
experience.
explore, we can talk about. But anyways, so I also want to just clarify if, for example, if we do the second option, which is the resolution, we could be doing we're doing 7 separate resolutions, but we could have a resolution for the current board member and the future, so for that zone.
Yes.
And not only that, but we could also put in provision, for example, that that board member, it is allowable up to 500, and it says 27.8, as it increases every year. But we can put in that provision that they would request that from the board manager, which would be Roseanne, for how much or if they want to opt out.
Yes,
and that
you
way
can
it
do
could
it
be
by-
a private, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't
Oh.
mean to cut you off, but that's
Yeah.
a good clarification. This will not be an ever present problem. It's the first time you vote on it with the conflict, and then from here on out, it's essentially the first option, which is you vote. Everyone who is in zone 1 will get a stipend for future years. So we won't be doing this kind of unique process every time.
So we can't vote and say, after all of us are off the board, next board member's gonna stipend.
You can, yes, you can. That's option 1. But that's as I said, the long-term strategy, because all 7 of you, if that's what you choose to do, all 7 of you would have to be off the board.
Maybe I need another clarifying question. Is it like 2 years from now, I don't run again, there's a new me? Let's say their name is Mike. Mike gets the stipend right then, or does
Yes.
Mike have to wait till all 7 people? Okay.
I got
great.
halfway through my sentence and realized I created that lack of clarity. You were correct. That is the accurate way.
Yeah, and that's where option 1. Option 2, you could get it next month, and then if Mike comes in, Mike would also continue to get
Yes.
it, or has the option to get it, as requested from the board manager.
If that's the way you choose to set it up, but I would recommend that that's the way if you go with option 2, that is what you will want to do. That you say zone member whatever, 3 will get it. Right.
So option number 1 could very, very likely leave us in a situation where some board members are getting a stipend and others
Yes.
aren't.
Yes.
Not because they're choosing not to take it or take it, but just because simply Director Split has not run again, and Mike has come in, but
Right.
Director Chase Miller does run again. Mike too
Yes.
doesn't get in, but now Director Chase Miller's not getting paid because she's putting in extra long hours and work, but Mike, who beat Director Split, or she just retired. I didn't run again. Yeah, you didn't run again. So anyway, this is all very inarticulate way of saying we could find ourselves in a very strange situation where some board members have an opportunity to get a stipend and others never do.
No question, yes.
Yeah.
That's the oddity of.
But I would say that we would make that decision. So like,
Right.
it's not like we would go into that with eyes wide open that might be the scenario. And so we'd be saying we would all be comfortable with Mike getting paid and me not getting paid to go with that strategy. Does that make sense? I think we get to like work that out.
I've got a question. So would it be possible to do a hybrid approach where we say once all of us are gone, we get everyone's getting paid, but until that happens, we take a more we take the looser approach that we laid out. Like, is there a possibility we can do like both?
I think that's option 2. If I'm understanding what you mean by the looser approach, option 2 is essentially that.
Okay,
Just
got it.
Flip it. It's you decide which members get it now, and then.
But then after they're
it's
gone,
in
they just get it.
Yeah.
Got it.
The
Okay, that
zone,
makes sense,
it's
yeah.
not, you're not gonna
The
vote
zone, got
for
it, yeah.
Mary Smith to get a stipend. What you're gonna vote for is the member representing Zone 2 to get a stipend now and in the future. And the current member for Zone 2 has to declare the conflict, whoever it
okay.
is. It's not you
Thank
as
you.
individual people, it's the zone member. Does that make sense?
Individually like that, we could all end up getting the stipend.
Yes. Option 2 enables you all to choose to vote to get all members who want it a stipend, presumably whenever you vote. Option 3, again, is back to the temporal version. Option 1 is long-term, whenever everybody moves on, whenever any one of you moves on. Option 2 is you can vote for it now. You've got to declare the conflict. You've got to go through the 7 different votes. Option 3 is you essentially declare the conflict in the budget and it begins next year, next budget year. Yeah. You all still have to declare the conflict, but yes, July, yes, I'm sorry. We vote every year? No.
Well, I guess-
think to be clear, I misunderstood.
So, I just to make sure that we kind of keep on track. If we do decide that we want to do this, we could have a vote as soon as October 14th.
Yeah.
First, I guess I just want to get direction from the board. How many of us would be interested in having a solution about stipends? So it's basically a yes or no. I'm asking for a yes or no on whether you want stipends or not.
Can I ask a question before I answer that? Then we can go down the line if you want from there, because I'm happy to share my thoughts. Do we know, like, let's say the percentage of districts in Oregon that provide a stipend or anything like that? Has anybody ever done that kind of comp analysis?
Yeah, we can, Roseanne.
So nobody does it. Nobody has a
Yes.
stipend.
Roseanne, did you double check this current data? As of about 6 months ago, it was nobody, but let Roseanne answer. Please, that was a request. Yeah.
Most work.
I did do some research, and there was a board that initially voted to implement a stipend, and then when the conflict came up from the legislator, they rolled it back. And when I checked with OSBA last month, they did not think any district had implemented it yet.
Just curious. I think that I have a few thoughts, and like I think I'm going to be really political in my analysis. Shocker. So I think we all know that given the budget conditions, even if the total amount for all of us to get stipends was less than like $5,000, I'm just making up a number, it would still be a story and still be like an issue. And so I want us all we all know that, right? Like going in eyes wide open, that no matter what, we're going to get a lot of grief for it. I admit that like I have this like,
I think it would be actually positive that people realize that board members are paid zero and that we're paid $500,
Well-
which is way below minimum wage.
Yeah. Well, I
Well,
understand. Yeah.
So way below what Los Angeles, $125,000 a car and
I
7
understand.
staff.
Anyways,
well,
anyway,
we
sorry,
can
I
see-
don't mean
we
to
can
interrupt.
see.
I need to
My-
continue your point.
My political analysis would be that it would be a rough news story for us. So I just want to put that's my 20 years in the biz, guys. That's how I feel. That's what I'm going to put out there. And so so I just want us to all go, because that's how I feel. I just want to go in eyes wide open. I will go with the will of the board. So if everybody wants to do this, I will vote for whatever strategy you all want to go for. I think my preference from a how much time do I want to spend with people being mad at us, because that's what I believe will happen in public places about getting a stipend in a time when there's major budget cuts happening at our schools. That, option number one is pretty appealing from that perspective, to say we think that in the board members should be paid, and we're going to take a stand to make sure that that happens. And in the future it will, but then it protects us from having to just get a bunch of grief in the meantime. However, saying all of that, if the board decides we're down with the grief, let's get our stipend, I'm game to vote with the majority. So I'll leave it at that.
Can I just offer some words as an observer? I appreciate, and I know I don't have a vote in this or benefit in any way, but what I will say is 85% of the things that I do or decide on, I know have the potential of being a bomb news story, and I do it anyway because I know and I believe strongly in the work that me and the team are doing on behalf of students. So when I think of these listening sessions, this work plan that you all just talked about, I mean, I don't want to influence in any way, but I think about the work plan. I think about how we need you all to be in community, listening alongside us or even in replace of us. The strategic plan, the mission, the vision, like all of the work that will be getting in community and getting in schools so that you can be a primary source of the work that's happening in Portland will require a lot of time and attention. So I just want to say that you all should know that you have a superintendent that are well aware of many things that I bring before you are going to blow up. But I believe that strongly in it being the right work. And I just hope that you all have that mindset too. And I don't think there's any comparable district to us, as we're the only urban school district. And I would say that if we're going to look at comparables in terms of board members with stipends or benefits, that we're looking at urban school districts across the United States and not Oregon school districts. As lovely as they are, they don't handle and carry the same amount of work that you all do as board members.
Yeah. I just want to make it really clear that I wasn't trying to say that I don't think we should do bold things because of bad news stories. I was just talking about our stipends coming to us personally, just having seen how things go when legislators vote to increase their own pay, which is nominal, and legislators in Oregon make like nothing, and even them just making a vote to like have a commission to look at it was hugely controversial. So I'm cool with making bold choices. I just want to make sure we all have eyes wide open and provide an option that could allow us to not be waylaid by that conversation at a time when we might want to have others. However, like I said, I'm down to do the bold thing. I just want to make sure that like my position would be like, there'd be less of a distraction to do number one, but if we want to do 2 and 3, I'm in. We should do hard things. I don't care about bad news stories. I think I was just in one this week. It's all fine.
Well, I mean, just as a reminder, like, this has been approved by the state legislature, and and through that approval process has already been, vetted out, with a mission and everything. And so like, this, again, it has already been approved. It has been vetted. This is something that they wanted for all school boards, but, unfortunately, because of some clerical legal stuff, it didn't make it. But it is passed as law in Oregon. Yeah. So kind of remind you. So here's the thing. This is why Resolution 2 is appealing to me, is because we can state in the resolution that board member can decline if they wish, or maybe they may start out with it and then 3 months later decide that they don't really need it. But if everyone claimed the full amount every month, the budget would be for the first year would be $33,000, about $33,256. Yes, from the general fund.
What I will say is that I definitely agree with Director Split. You know, I did watch that ballot measure about the independent commission, and I saw how it kind of got twisted. But I do think that the problem with that ballot measure was the messaging around it. Like, I feel like they kind of let the news do what they would with it, and so the news did what they did and misinterpreted it. And I feel like if we presented a very strong, unified front, like every single time we are asked this question, we are emailed this question, our response is, we got paid $0. We now get paid below minimum wage. And the total impact on our budget is minuscule, Yeah, it's such a small percent. And if we stick to our talking points, I do think that we could defeat the news cycle. But I do agree. That's if we pass a resolution like this, the Willamette Weekly is going to post an article that says, Portland Public Schools School Board votes to give themselves money.
There's definitely going to be an article. There's definitely going to be an article now.
Yeah, there's going to be an article today.
Why don't we be proactive then and reach out and say, this is on the table and just want you to know.
Yeah, and please don't post an article saying votes to give themselves
money. Not hiding
money.
anything here.
I think this is an important equity measure. If we want to have a board that is truly diverse, we need to have people who, I'm assuming that most of us who are on this dais right now have salaried jobs that give us the flexibility to take daytime hours away from our work. And we should have people on the board who make an hourly wage and don't have that flexibility. A stipend would help with that. My family is working class, and being on this board costs me money. That's just facts. And I signed up for that eyes wide open, and it's fine. And I know that, like the rest of you, I give this role my full attention and the time that it needs. And that time is worth something. Even if it is just like to be able to send my kids a pizza because I'm not home again, or pay for a babysitter, or put some gas in the car. So I'm in favor of it, and I'm in favor of option 2.
Dr. LaForte?
Was option 2, and forgive me, I know we already went over this. It's getting late. For between 2 and 3, I hate to put anybody in a situation where one of us, we're either opting in or we're opting out. I feel like we're either all in or not. Is that bad? I don't want anyone to feel like, they're the one that took the stipend or something like that. I just don't like that. It feels icky.
Well,
it's sort of like, yeah.
Nobody have to know.
Yeah, it's just.
So you
I think we have to vote.
You can, as a board with option 2, vote on each. You have to, with option 2, have a resolution for each individual board member. You can't really force somebody to accept it, though. But as a board can all vote for all 7 to receive the same stipend. Is that answering your question? Yeah. Okay.
Someone had mentioned we could each do it individually, and then you could decide. And I just felt like that just felt kind of.
No.
Like weird in the lunchroom, kind of thing. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, we wouldn't do that. I think the suggestion I put in for the is a suggestion is that in the resolution it could say that the amount you want to receive, you need to request that from the board manager. So it would be a one-on-one conversation with the individual board member and the board manager, and therefore we're not voting for I'm only going to vote 300 for Stephanie here, and no for you just because. No, I'm just kidding. Because that would be, that would be awkward, right? But I'll also reminder, we're 7 board members is overseeing 44,000 students. No other district in Oregon has that ratio. So, and I support resolution 2 because I think it's the cleanest way we can do it.
Can I say 2 things just to be 100% accurate while you discuss them? I think the question was asked, the vote, you would still need to vote during the budget cycle every year. I think I wanted to clarify, you don't have to vote for each every resolution individually, but every time the budget comes up, you will need, option 2 or 3 because you are recipients of the money in the budget. It's just something you need to declare every time you make that vote. And then the other thing I just wanted to clarify, when you were saying Mike, when you, when your hypothetical future board member, Mike, if you all voted in the option 1, it's the future board, so you say it's going to be a future board. If one of you, and in my mind I was thinking all 7 of you had to be gone, that's actually, as I thought about that, it's actually the future board if one of you re-ran, as long as you then, so if you ran again and you were on the future board, not this composition of the board, you could receive it, you'd have to declare the conflict. Okay. So I think I made it a little more long-term than it really is by the way I explained it initially. It's not the individual bodies, it's the individual members, and then in a future board state. No, because he couldn't have voted on it. Right, exactly.
Except for when Mike votes on the budget.
Yes, yes. And those are the I don't want to have waylaid you. I just wanted to have been completely accurate about those 2 things with you all.
Liking anyway, and the reason was people who couldn't be on the board otherwise could do it. And I remember I said, well, you know, that much a month is hardly going to put you on the board if you can't afford it. But they said, just like you said, but it can pay for the babysitter, it can pay for the gas, it can pay for the dinners. So the babysitters, all the things you have to do. Yeah. And of course, I wasn't thinking about that because I don't have to deal with that anymore. But so first I was thinking no, but then I'm fortunate I don't need it, and I wouldn't mind having it. So I mean, I'd buy something with it. But I guess I'd vote for number 2. I agree. I think we're going to be in hot water.
I kind of want to end this before we go to another record-long board meeting. So, anybody else have any?
I would just say that while I was sitting here, I had to Venmo babysitter, and that our community voted in, and we're proud of having parents on the board who have insight into the schools. And I mean, we know it comes with costs, and we're committed, and our community sees all of us. I've seen every single one of you at events that are not the board meeting, that are not the work session. You're doing the work, we're all doing the work, and it is important, and for future board members to make sure we can recruit everybody from anywhere in Portland. This just scratches the surface, but it brings respect, I think, to the work we're doing. So I like option 2.
All right, sounds like the majority for option 2. All right, thank you. I think we have, and I think we can bring that forward on the October 14th board meeting. All right, ready for the heat or not heat? Last thing on the.
Follow Ian's student representative Rotorto's excellent advice that we should have.
I think if the student representative says so, we should do it. I'm just saying. I
think that about most issues, actually.
Yes, I agree. So next up on the item is agenda is future board topics. I just want to kind of share a couple things before we go on, and I'll pass it on to any others who want to add. But I always like to leave the space here for us to have a chance to kind of discuss, because again, meeting laws is awkward to kind of, but the things that I have heard from our one-on-one conversations from you, I just want to, it's kind of funny because now it's been like a couple weeks and we've gotten to it all. So what I've almost gotten to it all. So things I've heard is the CBSE got to it, outdoor school got to it, internal auditor. I think that's a topic that was brought up by a board member. I think that continue to talk about. I think audit committee is dealing or talking about it. Stipend, that was something we just dealt with it. Last thing that I heard that we haven't dealt with is a question about making available pouches to helping with the cell phone policy. So that's one topic that was brought up that we haven't dealt with yet. Is there any others that people would like to add or bring up?
I have one, provided Dr. Armstrong's okay, but I know as we're entering a world where we're going to be looking for pennies under every couch cushion, and since we have transportation sort of at the forefront and transportation contracts and transportation conversations, so I would like, if it's okay, to have sort of a robust discussion and understand more about the transportation programs and the costs that we have, looking at, for example, just a general conversation on the transportation, the cost of after-school transportation through the PIL sports, the transportation of kids who are at non-neighborhood schools or at any of the schools, and just get an understanding of what we are spending. Because when I looked through it, it looks like we're spending a lot and maybe we don't need to be. And so I would love to have that presentation if that's okay.
Yeah, that would be an amazing topic because I suspect that we'll be bringing something in future months. And so the sooner we can get into that discussion, the better.
Thank you.
Looks like we have another topic. Thank you for that. Any others?
Just if you have, I think 3 people have turned in ideas for audits. Janice is going to start working on that on Friday. So if you have ideas for a new audit, please send them to Janice. Oh, maybe.
All right. We didn't hit our record, so congratulations. With that, the meeting is adjourned.